Good morning and happy Tuesday. Today I got a really fun model planned. It's going to be a female elf fighter that's going to be kind of like Viking styled and inspired. I want to start today's stream off a little different. Let me make sure I don't have any ads going because they'd like to start right away. I can temporarily pause them. There we go. Alright. And I kind of want to show you guys, make myself really big here, just the concept of what we're doing here. So I normally print some tabletop size, which is pretty small. It's like 2 inches tops. But I also do some like more statue-like. So this is one that I did a while ago, kind of based on, I've seen like the World Tree Yggdrasil, which is always like beautiful flower decorations and stuff. So I'm gonna be printing something that, or not, I'm designing something that can be printed at this size as well with this level of detail. Again, it's a little tricky to get it to focus on camera because the camera really likes my face. I'm also streaming and then it's blurry, but that is a 3D print. I also do creatures and stuff, haven't done in a while, but I also want to show you guys this really nice unicorn that I made a bit ago. Again, just feeling very pretty today. I've been making a lot of like monsters and stuff on stream, and today is going to be a pretty day. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and start modeling. Again, everything that I sculpt here is designed to be 3D printed. I always design it with tabletop in mind because that is really how I make like my livelihood. And how I make most of my sales, but I always like to design as if they're gonna be printed tall, like that model I just showed you guys. Okay, well, this is my base mesh here. I have my starting asset library like usual. Let me go ahead and stretch my chat up so I can make sure I see you guys when we start talking. There we go. All right, so we're gonna start off by getting our initial stamp. I've started creating like a storyboard as I progress through the live stream. You guys loved that yesterday, so I'm happy to do it again. All right, so here we are. I'm gonna go in first and we're going to adjust her face. So I'll be changing the poly paint, all that kind of good stuff. She's gonna be blonde, and I'm a sucker for light eyelashes too. There we go. I like poly painting with gradient turned on. Is that drag? I just find it so nice and soft. Ricky says, good morning. Hello, honey. That is my husband. He is the other part of M3DM, which is actually short for Mia's 3D models. I think a lot of people think it has to do with like DM, which are close because like Dungeon Master. Honestly, it works either way because again, I primarily design for tabletop. Alright, so we're gonna give her more elf-like features. I like giving a little bit of an upturned nose. Let's push these cheekbones up. To do that, I like going with standard, really low on the Z intensity, and just gently blocking in those cheekbones. Also gonna tilt her lashes up a bit, and then her eyes to match. Next up we're going to do is make those ears nice and elf-like. So to do that, I just mask just the top of her ears, go with my transpose line, and then click and drag, just like that. That actually looked like it was much easier than it is. If you've done that before, you're like, wow, how easy. No, the transpose line, you must make sure the points are just right. I don't think it's ever happened that easily, actually. I like to just try not to misrepresent things on stream. Like, I do think anyone can learn how to sculpt though, so. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm gonna mask her entire ear and just make the entire ear bigger. I like to give my elves pretty large ears because it's such an important part of, you know, the character. I want to read well. Ferret's here. Hello, I don't think you've been here before. And very appropriately said, heck yeah, hello, hope you don't mind ferrets. I do not. I think ferrets are adorable. That actually reminds me, so I grew up my entire life in California, the United States, and this year I moved across the country to Tennessee. So it's actually legal to have ferrets as pets here. It's illegal to have ferrets in California, which I always thought was really funny. All right, that's looking much nicer, much more elf-like. And then I think I'm gonna make her eyes blue. Again, it doesn't really matter I like to poly paint because it's just fun to do, but doesn't affect the actual 3D print. One day it will, because we're getting closer and closer to consumer level 3D printers that have color, but we're still a ways out. There we go. All right, looking nice and elfy. Her build is somewhat muscular, and I like that because she's going to be a fighter, and I'm going to be styling her somewhat like a Viking. I'm going to thin out her neck just a touch, and then also going to smooth her jawline. Going to give it a little bit more of a severe, pointier chin because she is an elf. All right, and I feel like there's a little bit of lumpiness right here, so I'm going to reduce the subdiv and then just gently smooth right here. There we are. All right, already looking much different than our base mesh. Makes me happy. Barrett says thank you. Yeah, of course. I always like welcoming new people. Usually I don't see anyone new on the stream until a bit later, so it's kind of nice to start a stream with someone new. All right. So the next step here is I'm going to start grabbing pieces from my asset library. I actually did this a little before stream because I was really early today, and so I just kind of sat here waiting to stream. I like being early in real life, but on my streams I don't like doing that because I know some of you guys are really diligent showing up at 11 a.m. and I don't want to be halfway done with a model by 11. All right, so I'm going to show you guys one of my asset libraries that I've created over the years. This is my weapon asset library. And she's specifically going to have a sword and shield. I'm going to pick this really nice Viking-based shield. I'm going to change my subtool, and I'm going to go ahead and append that. I'm also toying with the idea of picking one day a week where I sculpt a character with completely brand new assets. Just because it's kind of fun, and then I can keep growing my own asset library as well. All right, and then for a sword, I like this one with the runes on it. Again, these are all assets that I've made previously over the years. I've sculpted a little, I've released over 850 models, but in total I've sculpted over 1,000 models. All right, let's go ahead and give her some hair. I think it's time. Also gonna drop a quick save. Alrighty. Oh yeah, and to everyone's kind of hanging out right now and lurking, at the end of the stream, I will have the model finished, and I'll be sharing this model with you guys for free. It's designed for 3D printing, but I guess if you're also a 3D artist and you want to kind of use it to kit bash or whatever, I mean, feel free. Especially if you're not selling it, like, go nuts, I don't mind. All right, let's bring in this hair mesh that I have. I figured something nice and pretty and flowing in the wind would be nice. I also have this as multiple polygroups here, as you can see. So I have this wireframe turned on by holding Shift and F on my keyboard. And what that does is it lets me see the wireframe, and if I have different polygroups, it will show those as well. Polygroups are just pieces of the mesh that are recognized by the program as separate. So if I hit Command Shift, I can actually hide individual pieces, which is super helpful for quick masking. She's already looking a little more majestic. Nothing wrong with the lovely bald lady, but this one needed some hair. Very fancy. Barrett says, I just happened to stumble across you, M3. So pure chance knocked over that 20-sided die and it landed on 20. Aw, that's very sweet. Like just the implication that I am the 20. That's very sweet. Thank you. I also love that you guys all call me different things. Like my actual name is Mia, but some of you guys call me just M, M3. I've had some people just call me DM, which I think is funny because I've never DM'd a game before. I'd like to, but I don't play a ton of D&D, and even less of it is in person, which is very funny considering my livelihood is making minis. No, I really enjoy fantasy and sculpting and all that good stuff, but I don't play a ton of tabletop games. My first tabletop game I ever played, I really started getting into D&D right around COVID, actually. So that was obviously a little trickier to coordinate in-person games. And then also, you know, most of my friend group that I played with was in college, and so once we all graduated, we kind of all went our separate ways. We're still in touch, but we live all over the country now. I live in Tennessee, my DM lives in Indiana, and then a couple of them moved to Arizona, and the rest are in California. So it'd be a lot to schedule to get us all in the same place again. Not impossible, but a lot. All right, I'm gonna tuck her hair in right here. I really make sure really seeing that ear. And I'm just using the move brush to piece all this together. As you saw earlier, I was using that transpose line again to help shape her hair to match this specific model. I love how windswept this is, but I do want to tuck it a little farther behind her. I'm not going to get too far into that yet. We're going to keep working down the model because there's a lot to do still. Alrighty, let's go ahead and paint her hair. Very nice. All right, next I have this bodice that I actually created for a monk, which is going to be perfect for this model. I'm going to be changing it quite a bit, but the overall forms are exactly what I need. All right, to do that, I kind of just loosely line it up and then go with the move brush for some finer details. I can also go ahead and remove this little like modesty top. YouTube doesn't generally care, but every now and then it gets very, very concerned about a boob. And I'm not sure when it's going to be concerned, so now I live stream with little modesty garments on my models. So again, right now I'm just kind of like tucking the mesh in, making sure it's fitting her body well. And then after that, we're going to split off some of these forms and make it less monk-like, because again, she's a fighter, not a monk. All right, that's looking quite nice. Let's go ahead and split this into pieces. So I want to take this belt right here, and I'm going to be lining it with some fur. Change the size. And then we're going to make this top here almost a bit more corset-like and bodice-like. There we go. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Now let's go ahead and line this with some fur. To do that, I'm going to use a couple tricks here. So first, I'm going to go with my ZBrush brush, and I'm going to grab crease. I'm just going to crease the top and the bottom poly loops here. So now when I go in with my curved tooth brush, I can go to stroke, curve functions, turning off border and poly group, just leaving crease edges. Click on frame mesh, and then just like that, boop, I got some tubes that line up on there automatically. I like to talk about my process when I live stream, but it's very quick. So if you are trying to learn ZBrush or pick up some new techniques and you're like, wait, what was that? Feel free to ask. I'm very, very happy to do so. When I'm not live streaming, I am working on other projects, but I'm also teaching my students. So pretty much the majority of my students were brand new to ZBrush. So I'm very good at breaking things down, and it wouldn't be nearly that fast. So if you have questions, just don't be shy to ask. And even if you're not learning ZBrush, if you're just kind of interested in the process and you want to ask about it, that's totally fine too. All right, so we have some fur trim pieces here. And to detail them, I'm going to go with the move brush. And I like to kind of just rough it up to block out some fur chunks here. To do this, I'm using the move brush with Alt held down. On Mac, that's Option. I actually do use a Mac computer now, but I still say a lot of Windows hotkeys because that's what I use for most of my life. I am newer to Mac. I think I've had my MacBook for 2 years now. There we go. Gotta have some texture roughed in there. Gonna inflate it just a touch. right, that's looking quite nice. I'm not going to go too much farther in with the detail just yet. All right, I want to get more of the model blocked out before I do that. And the non-sleeper, this is one of my students actually said, "You're so good to make it look so easy and simple, but we can't follow and learn if there is an archive of these." Yes, there is. On YouTube, any live stream that I do is uploaded after the fact. Alrighty, now let's start getting another new color scheme for this blocked in. I'm gonna do kind of this light tan here. Like the idea of the fur trim being white, and then this will be some sort of like leather. So I'm gonna go in this darker orangey color. There we go. All right, I'm very happy with that. I also think the straps on this bodice were darker, it'd look nicer. There we go. Just some small details here and there. All right, next I kind of want to give her like this flowy layered leather skirt. I don't normally do that. My fighters usually come out pretty tough, but again, like fighters are a bit more versatile and nimble, so I want to make her look much more distinct from my like barbarians or my paladins. So we're gonna have a bit of a flowy skirt here. I hope your guys' week is off to a nice start. I've had a really nice quiet week. Yesterday just kind of flew by. All right, this is gonna need a lot of working and fitting to her, but it's a good start. I actually initially created this little base mesh I'm using right now for a goblin archer. Really cute. She had like a flower petal-like dress. Already made a lot of progress since we started the stream. Happy about that. I'm really starting to get in the flow of streaming. Definitely took me a while to get used to it because it's kind of like a balance of chatting with you guys, but still getting my work done. Alrighty. So to make this a little easier on myself, I'm gonna just worry about the top layer. I can go in after the fact. Oh, I do like this bottom layer a lot too. All right, in that case, I'm gonna actually delete just the top layer. There we go. So just have these two pieces here, and we're gonna start working on the skirt from here. I'm gonna go a bit further and make this tabard its own piece. Let's go ahead and shape this. I'm gonna make it much wider. And I'm also, so you can see there's no thickness on this. I'm gonna add that later on. Go in with bend arc. This is just so it fits her body a little bit better. All right, and then using my move brush to fit this to the body as well. All right, that's a good initial panel. Let's keep going. It's a little wavy, so to fix that, I can do ZBrush and I can also polish by features, and that will help kind of reduce this kind of wave I have in it right now. There we go. There we go. I like that shape a lot. I can keep this shape, or I can continue this panel around. I'm actually going to do that instead. So I'm going to work out of symmetry briefly here. Non-sleeper is very chatty this morning. It's good to see you're in a good mood. I don't need to worry about the seams up here being perfect because I have a large belt that kind of wrap around at the end too. So I encourage you guys when you're in your blockout stage not to like hyperfixate too much on how each seam is fitting perfectly, and just largely get some shapes on there. So right now I'm just making sure that this panel curves all the way around her leg. If I like this blockout enough, I'll probably just add this to my asset library. And that's kind of just how the asset library goes. I just keep making pieces and modifying them and then spitting them back. And then eventually I ended up with what you saw earlier. I have dozens and dozens of pieces I can work from. Obviously, if you're a brand new beginner, I really don't recommend that. You're not even gonna want to save your stuff in the beginning. Just focus on iterating and lots of practice. Lots and lots of practice. That was something that was hard for me to realize when I was first starting out learning how to sculpt. A lot of times it was better for me just to restart a sculpt from scratch rather than reworking the same tired old mesh over and over again. Non-sleeper, I know that you are an artist and that you use ZBrush. I'm curious if anyone else that's hanging out here also uses 3D programs. I found that most of my viewers are one or the other. You guys are either 3D artists or you're into tabletop games. Occasionally I get people that kind of stumbled across it and they're like, I have no idea about Dungeons and Dragons or 3D printing. Obviously, everyone's welcome. I remember I was so concerned when I first took this full time that I was gonna get tired of making 3D models one day. I wasn't feeling burned out or anything at the time. I was just paranoid that I'm like, can I really do this for years? And so far we're almost, I think, 5 years in and hasn't stopped being fun yet, so. All right, I'm happy with that. She's looking a little tribal almost, so I wanna make sure that that doesn't go too far, but she is supposed to have a Viking flair, so I'll just keep that in mind. I don't like how greenish this top came out. Let's go ahead and there we go. Very nice. Non-sleeper says, definitely tabletop games and making items for set games. That makes sense. Alrighty. I have these belts I really like here. I definitely don't want to use these little flower emblems. They just don't suit this model. So I'm going to remove those. And I'm also going to adjust this little lower belt here that isn't quite meshing with the rest of it. So manually select that, and that's just by quickly using different masking techniques. Like always, you guys have questions like, hey, how'd you do that? What's going on? Definitely let me know. I do a pretty good job of like lightly narrating as I go, but some things might seem simple to me because I've done them thousands of times. So I might not describe what you want me to unless you ask. But if not, I know a lot of you guys like to kind of just put this on while you work, so if that's the case, just sit back and enjoy the stream. I'll let you guys know when I make like major progress updates and when's a good time to kind of look up and see what's going on. Barrett says, actually come here and as a 2D graphic artist who plays World of Darkness. Strangely enough, I started digital paint of an elf. No kidding. Different concept, but all the same. Oh, I love that. I admire 2D artists so much because it's something that just did not come naturally to me. I'm like deeply untalented at it. In my free time when I'm not, working on my job here as a 3D artist, I actually spend quite a bit of time learning 2D art. I kind of treat it like a part-time job in addition to my normal job, and I'm making very, very slow progress. It's funny, it just doesn't click with me as well. I'm pretty good at learning things in general. I also play piano. I was taught how to play piano though. I was a classically trained pianist for about 11 years, and then after that I moved off to college, and then since then I kind of just taught myself how to improve and play. But yeah, for some reason 2D art has just been an absolute anomaly to me. I'm making progress and I know how to learn, but goodness, it does not come to me easily. It really doesn't. I've still definitely put more hours in 3D than I have 2D, so go figure that I'm not as skilled, but if I put the amount of time that I have in my 2D work into my 3D work, I'd be even better as a 3D artist. But I just think 2D art is so cool, and I really like doing more illustration-based stuff, kind of like cute, almost like children's book kind of style. There we are. Right now I'm kind of making sure I'm selecting this belt right here. There we go, this one. Because I don't want it showing through the back of the mesh here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just tuck that into the body. There we go. And I'm also making sure the belt is nice and straight. Little bits like that are kind of like wobbly when they shouldn't be, and if there's motion you want to show that, but otherwise it's nice to try to keep your lines as clean as possible. There we are. That's nice. Non-sleeper's being sweet. He's kind of rallying you guys to like the video so that more people can see this. You're very sweet. He specifically says it would make an old and grumpy guy happy. You're very sweet. Taylor says, likewise, I know how to use Illustrator and have a basic sense of graphic design, but it's not fun, right? I joke, but not anymore, but I used to be a terrible student. Very good grades. I got a full ride scholarship. Smart, but not a good student. Terrible attitude. Horrible, horrible attitude. I've gotten better over the years, but if I'm not good at something, I'm like a child. And then once I identified that, in my early 20s, I was like, I need to do better than that. So I've made a lot more progress, but I share that same sentiment where I'm like, if I'm not good at something, I don't think it's fun, which is a really dumb way to be. Be bad at things, guys, and have fun being bad at it, because before you know it, you'll get better. Ferret says, yeah, 2D art takes so much time to master, and technique comes naturally over years. 3D is something I do, but mostly sceneries in twin motion, which I can then tweak to work with my scenes. Oh, cool. You're you know a lot. I can tell, Ferret. I can tell you do a lot, and I'm super interested. I wish YouTube would let you guys post links, because I would love to see what you do. If you're comfortable, Ferret, I would love if you could put your social media handle. If you do post anything on social media that's art related, I would just love to see that. And then let's see. Oh, someone new, Zerchan. I will call you Zer. Zer says, hi, I usually watch your streams, but I don't chat at all. Oh, you're one of my lurkers, my people. I'm a web developer, but I do ZBrush sculpts in my free time just for fun. Oh, how cool. Also, I appreciate you chiming in. I appreciate you regardless. As you know, I say every stream, but the people that hang out on my streams but never chat, but they come back, that is me. I am not, I really keep to myself, unless I am actually the person putting on the performance, so to speak. If I am not the content, I am not there. And I wouldn't even describe myself as shy. I don't know. I'm not sure why. I just don't interact unless I absolutely have to. I used to joke, I don't know if you guys have heard this before, that I have very limited social spoons. You've heard of spoons as currency. There's a game called Spoons. Anyway, That's me for sure. And as I've gotten older and better at just managing life and stuff, I don't wear myself out as much, but I'm still very greedy with my energy. I think that's what it is. I'm actually working on that to not be as, yeah, I'm gonna like those. Not as be as concerned about actually expending my energy and being social. I just spent so much of my early 20s and getting through college just being absolutely exhausted all the time that it made me very, very greedy with my energy. Something that I'm unlearning. I'm trying to think of it where, like, at the end of the day, if I feel really tired, that's a good thing. That means I had a good full day. I used to not like that though, because if I was super tired, there was always more to do. So I kind of felt like being kicked while I was down, so to speak. So my response to that was never be tired and never spend any energy unless absolutely necessary. It didn't work out great. These boots are going to be perfect for this model. I have a really nice pose plan for this. I grabbed the pose reference from the pose archives, and any creator that's hanging out right now, I highly recommend you look into them. I'm going to show you guys a couple poses that I got. These are paid for assets, but I think it's okay if I just share you a little bit. But this is the pose that I'm using today. Again, that's called the Pose Archives. I actually went through last night and bought the rest of their stuff I didn't already have. There's some light NSFW stuff there, so like, don't be traumatized. But there's most of it is like just standard reference pose kind of stuff. Anyway, I cannot recommend them enough. All their photos are super high quality and really well organized as well. I used to just go on Pinterest and run around looking for pose references, or I'll just go stand in the mirror and try to find something that I like. But they have saved me so much time. I'm also very transparent with every tool that I'm using. So if you guys have any questions on, like, I know I say that a lot, but I just really like to emphasize it. I have an open book. There's no trade secrets here. If you want to know where something came from, just ask. I think that's partly because I teach, but also because, I don't know, I'm a real big proponent in artists supporting other artists. Coming around nicely. Farrah said, it's okay to be reserved. Yeah, the people that know me personally would probably describe me as much more like, bubbly, but never extroverted necessarily. And then Farrah says, ooh, yeah, those are good references, right? Okay, I'm gonna throw that in the chat just in case. You guys should look it up. The Pose Archives. I know you guys know how to spell. I'm just throwing it in there. And then I think someone new is here. Dr. Machete Legs. I'm debating whether to call you Doctor or Machete. Let me go with Machete because that's really funny. Hi and welcome. I always love new people are tuning in here. So there's actually quite a few new people here. I'm gonna do a quick little recap. We're gonna take a very brief break, just to tell you guys like who I am and what I do. My name is Mia. I am part of M3DM. That's my husband and I, and we make 3D printable models like this. So this was 3D printed. This is very large. Most of the stuff I do is tabletop scale. I actually don't have a tabletop human right next to me, but I do have a unicorn that I made that's tabletop scale. So yeah, also 3D printed. I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I have, oh goodness, 850 models on Patreon that I share. And then if you're not interested in the 3D printable models, I also teach how to sculpt. But just kind of a recap of like what's going on here and what I do. So if you're wondering like why, if you do 3D printing, why are you poly painting? It's just fun. I paint my models digitally because it looks cool. And I think it makes the streams a little more fun and engaging. So that's why I do that. All right, Machete said, I was actually in the other day. I'm the guy that makes cosplay stuff. Oh, hey. Yeah, you asked about VR modeling. That's right. Very cool. Oh, Royce is back from yesterday. Hello, hello. Did you have the same username, Machete? Because I feel like I don't remember calling anyone Machete, and I definitely wouldn't have called you Legs. I might have called you Doctor, though. For the most part, I'm pretty good at remembering you guys, but these streams are getting more popular than I expected, so in the beginning I only had to keep track of like 3 people, and now there's like quadruple that, so I'm getting with it. Just know that I care, and I am trying to remember you guys. I'm really, really good at remembering names when there are faces attached. So kind of like the more distinct that I can see your profile picture, like or avatar, the more I'll remember you. Like Ferret, your name is Ferret, and your picture is of a ferret. I'm gonna remember you forever. That like lines up, that is synced in my memory. Watch you join tomorrow, maybe like, oh, Ferret, you're new. No, I'm pretty confident I remember you. Anyway. This is coming around really nicely. I do want to add some more leather material behind her knees because I feel like having these metal plates would be very uncomfortable. Goodness, I am surprised the stream is so lively on a Tuesday morning. I guess it depends where you guys are from. But here, it's a little before noon, so I guess it's not really morning anymore. All right, kind of putting this little boot topper on here. It's super low poly, so I can fit it as needed. And I'm only working on it on one side. When I'm working with assets, I kind of like to work out of symmetry. I find it easier to manipulate. I think I might give her pants as well. Yeah, I'm gonna give her pants. Okay. To do that, I'm gonna go with mask pen. There we go. And I'm going to extract at 0 thickness. And here we go, we've got some pants. I just think having some leather stitching down the side would be nice, and I want to give her more of a Viking aesthetic. So I think it'd just be too cold to not be wearing pants. There we go. She has some pants now. I'll be going in somewhat soon for detailing. Still working on getting this base mesh all the way blocked out. There we are. Oh, I am missing out on the chat. 1 second. Ferret says, gonna lurk for a bit. Coffee is needed. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting about my coffee. But I have one of those like overly priced heated coffee mugs, but I'm not ashamed of it because I actually finished my coffee now because I always forget about it. Machete said, no, I actually didn't. Well, you're saying my name out loud actually made me realize that Machete is just my @ not my username, which is supposed to be an oversight on my part. Okay, cool, I'm glad. I was right. And then Machete said, so is it better to sculpt in low poly than bring the resolution up later? What's the benefit of that? That is such a good question. Oh, you're like scratching my like teacher itch. Okay, I'm gonna sip some coffee. I'm gonna breathe for a second because it's such a lively stream already, and like it super hypes me up, so I don't want to burn out at the beginning of the stream. We literally just started. Look, if there's more than 10 people in the stream, to me that's a party, so it's very exciting. Okay. So, to answer your question, Machete asked, why are we sculpting low poly and then making it higher poly later on? The reason for that is because when there's less polys, it's much easier to manage. And I can actually give you guys some demonstrations. Let's go ahead and go in with the sphere. I'm gonna just do a quick demo over here. So we got the sphere and it's pretty low poly. What does low poly even mean? It just means that pretty much, see how it's like this pixelated appearance right here? So when I deform the mesh, you can kind of see like some pixelation here. Let me go even lower to make this concept really clear. I'm gonna bring this all the way down to 1,000 points. There you go. So if I were to go in with like a chisel brush, let's say chisel creature, and try to put an ear on this, it's gonna come out terrible. See how like distorted that is? So you guys are probably wondering, why would you ever want that? It's because if I'm gonna go through and put a mask on this and then blur the mask, so control tap, see how nicely and easily that blurred? It only took me 2 clicks to blur that. That's kind of a overall representation of how much easier it is to manipulate the mesh. So we're at 1,000 points. Let's divide all the way up to 1.7 million points. So now when I go back in and try to draw that ear, look how nice and crispy that is. The downside is though, if I go in and try to blur that mask, I'm still clicking. I've clicked like 30 times now. The mask has not blurred at all. It does not care. It mocks my authority. It's hard to manipulate. And obviously a mask is just an example of an operation, but that's kind of me showing you guys how much harder it is to manipulate when you have tons of polys. So again, when I'm finding my base shapes and manipulating stuff, I want to be as low as possible. I think that was a pretty solid explanation. If you still have questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to demo in any way. I've been teaching for about 2 years, so I have a lot of different ways to teach the exact same concept. So if that didn't make sense, let me know. I'll show you another example. Alrighty. We're about done blocking out her main forms here. I probably should have made sure ads were delayed during that, because goodness, I feel like whenever I start talking, YouTube's like, you need to put an ad in right there. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to teach something. Okay. So I'd like to give her this nice, like, thick cape here that's going to be blanketed in heavy fur. And then Max says, oh, Max, I think you're new as well. Hello and welcome. Are you a teacher? You could be a teacher. Oh, I guess saying it, I'm not like a school teacher. I'm terrible with children. I don't want children. Children are great. They're not for me. Anyway, no, but I teach online. I do one-on-one mentorships through Patreon, actually. And I specifically teach 3D modeling. But the big reason why I like explaining concepts and stuff like that is I went to school for mechanical engineering, and while I was there, I was actually one of their student ambassadors, so I'd work with children, ironically, and explain engineering concepts. And there's something magical about trying to explain to a 10-year-old basics of fluid mechanics. And when you're able to break something down in a way that's digestible, it's so satisfying, and like you can see it click in their eyes, and like you know you did a good job, and like it's such a good feeling. So I kind of started falling in love with teaching complicated concepts then. And I think everything can be complicated. So that's why teaching 3D has been a lot of fun for me. If you guys are interested in my mentorship program, I do have that link pinned at the top of the live chat there. And if you have questions about it, let me know. I don't just throw a bunch of videos your way and hope you learn. I literally will tell you, hey, watch this specific video, then talk to me about it. And we pretty much keep going through that way until I feel like you have a good enough understanding to begin project work. And then we start working through that together. Sai's here, hello. And then Max says, I'm getting my BS MET right now. No kidding, how cool. Also, like, I know you haven't done it yet, but like, congrats. Get through it. Sai says, are you taking appropriate water breaks? No, I'm not. Sai's been around for a while, and they're kind of like my helpful check-in, so I don't overwork myself. Notice I'm about 45 minutes late, and 45 minutes is what you're suggested. You were correct. And I haven't finished my coffee yet, and the stream has been very lively, so I've been working somewhat slowly. I will take a break soon. I always appreciate the reminder. Gosh, this model is going to rock. I'm so excited about it. I need to get some bracers on her arms, and I have just the mesh for it too. We are going to be sculpting this cape pretty much from scratch here, and I'll show you guys some tricks on how I detail that in just a moment. But first, I have another piece of my asset library I'd like to bring in here and attach, because it's just, literally, I couldn't have made a better mesh for this model. Yeah, how perfect is that? And it's gonna match her fur trim here. All right, go ahead and fill object, lovely. And we'll just throw the same color on. Very nice. I think a white gradient would be nice on the bottom of this cape. I haven't decided what kind of fur it's going to be quite yet. I'm going to give her some pauldrons on her shoulders as well to be attachment points for the cape to tuck under. There we go. She's coming out lovely, isn't she? Sai says, wow, that hair looks stunning. We'll need to rewind later to see it done. That actually did for a different model, so I haven't done that one on stream. But if you guys want to see like a hair demo, to me this live stream is like it's a give and take, right? So I'm able to share my art with you guys get to hang out, but I also am able to reach people I've never reached before, and it directly helps my business. I've gained like 2 or 3 new students just from the last week. My point is, this is making me money, quite literally. So if you guys have orders to put in, I am very happy to do demos. Let's see, Max says, distilling complex issues to easily understood things is a sign of brilliance. I'd like to think so, and that's why I'm always in the pursuit of it. Max, complex, yes. And then Gavin's here. I believe that you're new. Hello and welcome. How tall will this figure be? This is for tabletop scale. That being said, what's really cool about 3D printable models is you can scale them up in your slicer to whatever you want. So, making my screen a little bigger here. This model is obviously not tabletop scale, but I've printed this exact model tabletop scale, which would be about this tall instead. So yeah. I'm gonna jump off camera really quick to go ahead and grab another human so I can show you guys side by side the scale, just in case you're not in a tabletop. All right, it's not the same model, but they're both women and they're both similar-ish. So we have this model, which is 75mm scale, and then we have tabletop scale, this big. So the model I'm designing now is for tabletop scale. However, you could print it this big as well. I designed them pretty much the same. I put a lot of love and care and detail into them, even though they're gonna be printed small, because I do have quite a few Patreon supporters that do print them like 6 inches tall. And it's fun. So I detail my models however I want. All right, let me go ahead and shrink up my screen here so I can get back to the chat and back to work. I hope that little demo was helpful. On my last stream was actually the first time I've shown my 3D printable models on stream. And you guys loved that, and I'm so glad I had them ready to show you. Gavin says, you have faith in your printer. Oh yes, my printers have been very, very good to me, but I've also been doing this a long time. I have sculpted over 850 models, and I have printed in well over 1,000 at this point, because I print every single model that I sculpt. 850 is just the number of what's available to my patrons right now. And patrons, if you're not familiar, Patreon's a place where if you give me money, I give you art. That's all it is. So it's back to a nod of like old-timey days where you'll be a patron of the arts. That's what Patreon's a play on. So if you want to be technical, I've definitely made over 1,000 models, but I have 850 that I am proud of and have been officially released. And that's not counting any private client work and commissions that I've done. I don't do too many commissions. I'm pretty picky with who I accept. In the beginning, I pretty much only did commission work, but ooh, commissions are hit or miss, guys. It's like, yeah, you get paid for them, but sometimes at what cost? Doing terrible commissions and dealing with really mean clients in the beginning was super helpful and a formative part of me becoming a professional artist. And it makes me appreciate that I get to make whatever I want now, and my patrons make that happen. I actually sculpt my Patreon requests. That's how I do this. So this model here is a female Elven fighter, and she's actually the wife of one of the NPCs in one of my supporters campaigns. So pretty cool. I think her name's Ruby. All right, so coming out lovely. Let me go ahead and scroll up, make sure I have all the pieces I meant to create. One of my favorite pre-made, so whenever I'm bringing in a mesh I did not sculpt, I'm going to tell you guys every time. I bought some brushes from JRO. I'm not sure what that's short for. If you search JRO in Gumroad or ArtStation, you should find it. Here we go. JRO ornament. And there's all these nice little ornaments. They're just like ready to go, and they're low subdiv. They're just fantastic. Because I want to have some like cauldron things that these attach to. I obviously need to modify them so they're 3D printing friendly, but that hasn't been too difficult. These are gonna be perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and do this out of symmetry because I just find it a little easier to work with. There we are. Split that mask point. There we are. And then I'm going to mask the edge of this cape here and bring it up and over her shoulders. But first, before I do that, I'm actually going to do a little divot in the center because it's not going to, I don't want to cut through the back of her neck. I just want to sit nicely on her shoulders. So again, a little mask. And we'll use a 3D gizmo and stretch on up, just like that. It's getting pretty distorted here, so I'll just Z-remesh with same and it will clean that up. Or it will fight me. It's okay, I got tricks. There we go. I could also be using Dynamesh for this, but I'm not because I don't have any thickness with this mesh right now. I want to add that later. There we are. And then I'm going to go with the move brush to make some of these minor adjustments. Excellent. All right, those are nicely draped on her shoulders now, and it's going to be a really like thick, luscious fur coat. Ferret is back and freshly caffeinated. Very nice. I still need to remember to drink my coffee. I'm almost done. Again, it's one of those fancy heated coffee mugs, so at the bottom it gets really, really hot. You can adjust the temp of it, but it's like some dumb app on your phone, and like, I'm not gonna log in and make an account to control my coffee mug. So I just deal with the default temp it does, and it's really hot. All right, coffee done. I've also been caffeinated. All right, I think I'd like to add some little like leather bracers, or maybe just like an undershirt. Yeah, I'd like to do a little undershirt here. Let's do that. So to do that, I'm going to turn off poly paint for a bit because YouTube gets very upset with nudity sometimes, and I never know when it's going to be angry, so I try to confuse it by turning off poly paint. All right, I went ahead and gave her a little bit of an undershirt. And this just gives me an opportunity to add some nice fabric folds and stuff later on, which I love doing that. All the fabric folds I'll be sculpting from scratch on stream. And I'll talk to you guys about what techniques I use to do that too. There we are. All right, I think most of the components are finished and blocked out here. All right, she's coming around quite nice, isn't she? Roy says, I appreciate you calling out the tools, brushes you're using as you go. Okay, good. I try to have like a nice like soft cadence as I get through my live streams, but I also wonder if you guys get tired of hearing me say the move brush for like the 100th time. Like 90% of what I do is with the move brush. Ferret says, I'm buzzing. This is great. I'm having a pretty good time too. Alrighty. Well, I think this is definitely another good little break point here. So this is a great time if you guys are kind of like working, doing your own thing. It's a good time to look up and check in. Okay, so on the far left here is where we began the stream. This is my base mesh I create off camera and I just have ready to go. The base mesh was actually drafted in ZBuilder but the face and the poly paint and the eyelashes and hair and eyebrows, all of that's me. But again, the body was mostly drafted in ZBuilder. And after that, I adjusted the face quite a bit and the ears to make her look like an elf. And then all of the clothing and poly paint we've done on stream together here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hide the weapons. And we're gonna put a little stamp here to mark our progress. All right, so we're on stage 2 of the live stream. Or we've just finished stage 2, however you wanna put it. All right, so I'm gonna take a quick little break here, and when we come back, I'm going to detail this, because as of now, it's just like polygons and there's no fabric folds, making sure that certain textures read the way they're supposed to, and then we're going to pose and finally post-process for 3D printing. That's just making sure the mesh has integrity, no holes that can be 3D printed. If you hang around for all of that, I'm sharing this model for free. If you're watching in the future, the model is no longer free. It's on Patreon. And then Non-Sleeper is logging off and then putting a little plug in for mentorship program. Thank you, that's very sweet. He says, it is so awesome, you'll see yourself grow as an artist and a person with your new skills and knowledge. I'm glad that you enjoy it so much. Non-Sleeper has been a student of mine for a long time. He's been on break, but I think recently coming back, which is exciting. And yeah, if you guys have more questions about mentorship, let me know. If not, I'm gonna take my quick little water break here. I'll be back in like 2 to 3 minutes. I have pretty short breaks, just enough to move around and stuff. And if you've been hanging out since the beginning, I encourage you to take a little break as well. All right, I'll be right back. Thank you guys for hanging out. Alrighty, so I'm really excited to kind of get this model all buttoned up because I know it's going to be a really solid one, and there's a lot of different materials and fabrics to detail here. So let's get started. Non-Sleeper is giving a glowing testimonial of my mentorship program right now. I really appreciate it. Alrighty, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get in touch here with the cape and how I want this model to read. Since our hair is so windswept, I think it'd be nice to actually have just this top here be like this thick piece of fur, and then underneath it being fabric. So we have two different materials and textures to deal with here, so let's get to it. I'm going to duplicate the entire cape. I'm going to mask just the top here. Select it and delete what's hidden. Now I have a separate mesh that is sitting right on top. I haven't decided what color fur it's going to be. I think it's just going to be like a really dark color, but not black. There we are. Oh, Pet's here. Ahoy, welcome. If I had arrived a bit later, I would have missed it. Maybe, that goes pretty quick, doesn't it? I have this really lovely fur detailing brush that I got a while back. All right, now that we have this segment here, I'm gonna go ahead and give this some thickness. We can start sculpting on top of it. Royce asked a question about mentorship. He says, I'm curious about the mentorship. How does scheduling work? It's really up to you and what you need. So we kind of talk about how much structure that you need. I have some students that I check in with every Monday. Most of them are every Saturday, but it's really up to you. For the most part, I provide an assignment. Once you finish it, or if you have questions, you reach out to me. When you finish that assignment, I provide a new one. So we kind of keep just going like that. It's a very natural, organic conversation and flow. If you want it to be super structured, and some people, I've had students that want to take this full time, so I check in with them actually 3 times a week, and they get through a lot of assignments very quickly and a lot of project work. But for most of my students, it's pretty casual. It's just something that they do in their free time, and I just provide new assignments whenever they finish the old one. Let's say they had a really hard time learning how to sculpt fur. Maybe I'll create a couple additional assignments and kind of talk through some tips to work through that. Okay, I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, just let me know and I'll answer it again. Love that fur texture there. Yep, that's a texture. I'm just seeing how it's gonna read against her hair. But you don't want to apply a fur texture brush like that just flat on a mesh. I mean, you can, but it's just going to look really tacked on. So I recommend taking the time to actually rough up your mesh a little bit. I usually really advise my students are not allowed to use texture brushes. They can't sculpt themselves. Otherwise, it becomes a crutch. I love using brushes, but that's because if you put this brush side by side, I can sculpt it from scratch. And you don't even have to be great at it, but you just have to have some semblance of how to create the brush that you're using. There we go. So that's looking pretty nice. Just have some texture on there. It's already kind of reading like fur too. Barrett says, you were wondering about social media earlier and I haven't really given much thought to it. In my opinion, generally I do all my stuff through Discord. If it helps, my username is Peppergirl on there. Oh, okay, cool. If you're interested, I can have you join my Discord. It's for Patreon users, and only if you feel like sharing your stuff. You do not have to if you just want to learn. Again, my Discord's meant for my patrons, but it's my Discord. I can do whatever I want. So if you guys want an invite to that, just let me know. I'm happy to bring you guys in. Pat says, I have 3 days ahead to dive into this full time. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, so Pat's actually one of my newer students here. And I'm so excited to kind of jumpstart your progress then. That's gonna be a really good time. And yeah, Non-Sleeper kind of reiterated to Royce that, yeah, it's pretty much on your schedule. If you're not happy with the progress you're making, you think you need to be more aggressive, we'll work together on that. I really like to caution my students against setting too large of goals. Set tiny goals that you can nail, and then build your confidence up, and you'll naturally progress. I've had students that are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna dedicate 3 hours a day, every day. I'm like, let's start with 3 minutes. And I know it sounds like a tiny goal, but it'll be more challenging than you think. It's a brand new habit that you're learning and a new skill on top of that. So it really pays to treat yourself with some kindness and some patience. There we go. See how much nicer that texture brush is laying on here now? Even then, I'm being very careful with where I'm going to position it and make sure it's lining up organically. And then to bring it onto the other sides, I'm going to have a mask right there so I don't have any tearing of the mesh or any glitching. Being thoughtful about how that lays on your mesh really goes a long way. I don't mind it being a bit higher detail right here because it's an interesting point of the model. There we go, I like having that kind of curl away from her collar. Beautiful. All right, so this seam right here is showing, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of sculpting to blend that in. I'll be using damp standard and the standard brush. I'll also be having lazy radius turned on. I'm just kind of drawing some lines in here, kind of mimicking that fur structure, just so that, I call these like paint catchers, because most people print these models for tabletop games. So you have a nice little seam right there, and I can even bring that up into the fur texture itself. There we go. Much better than just like having like a naked edge. There we go. Very happy with that. All right, got that nice little fur chunk on top. Now let's get the fabric going. To do that, I'm going to use dynamic to add thickness. So dynamic, lowering smooth subdiv to 0, and extruding some thickness. I like to have it at -100 because I usually create my silhouettes from one side. Oh, I missed quite a bit of chat here. 1 second. Sorry, guys. I love how active you guys are. Just kind of catching me off guard. It's nice. And then yes, you guys did want a Discord invite. Oh, awesome, awesome. I'd love to have you guys there. Seriously. I also post about live streams, so you won't miss those. That being said, I'm very consistent. It's Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. EST. Or is that EDT now? Just, it's Eastern time. We have daylight savings here, so it's confusing. All right, so Discord invite for everyone. Feel free, if you're lurking, feel free to join. All right, let me see on this. Royce want to join as well? Sounds good. Let's see, Bill says good morning. Good morning to you too. Royce says, I'm very new to this. I downloaded the ZBrush app on iPad. Oh, how fun. I have no idea what I'm looking at and nothing makes sense. Isn't it just a nightmare? Oh my God. I like trying to learn ZBrush by myself I taught myself and it sucked. It sucked so hard, guys. And that's actually a big reason why I do the mentorship. I created videos that I wished existed when I was trying to learn ZBrush. Because a lot of them, it's like a 2-hour tutorial on how to make a belt. Like, they show you a lot of good techniques, but like, it doesn't make any sense. So I try to take a lot of the mystery out of that. And I specifically design it for brand new beginners. We literally start with how to open the program. Anyway, enough on that. Tanner's here. Oh, hi, I think that you're new. Tanner says, 2 a.m., but just found your channel and looking forward to watching this tomorrow morning. Oh, that's lovely. If you end up having any questions, I guess you can also join Discord and message me later. But thanks for tuning in. Pat says, which is great. No one should be able to understand anything when sawing ZBrush for the first time. Yeah, it's a lot. Pat Nade Prince is back. Hello, welcome. The non-sleeper continues. There are lessons so you're familiar with the layout and customizing, etc. Yep, that's absolutely true. You'll know, Royce, since you've opened ZBrush on iPad, that my UI here looks nothing like what you're seeing. And that's because I made this UI myself. And I like it a lot. It's much cleaner and easier to use. I do share this UI with students. but it's no mystery. You can make your own UI by going to Preferences, Config, and then when you click this Enable Customize, it will allow you to click and drag buttons wherever you want. Obviously, it's not quite that easy sometimes, so I do have a video detailing that, but anyway. You guys are asking a lot of great questions about mentorship. I just don't want the stream to feel like an ad. It's not disingenuous. Again, I'm getting more comfortable with treating what I do as a business, but still being authentic. To me, they can both be true. It's just, I don't know. I don't want to come across like a used car salesman, you know? But I really appreciate you guys' questions and interest. I really do. And that Discord invite should have worked. Let me double check that it's working for you guys. Yep, you guys are joining. Thank you. Just like having you guys in the community, so you guys will kind of see updates about M3DM and all that kind of good stuff. Pepper, it looks like you joined my M3DM Learn. I don't even know how you found this, but I love that you did, because that's my art one. Unless I have 2 different Discords, I have 2 different Patreons. It's confusing for me too sometimes. Roy says, oh nice, I was looking at the UI thinking this isn't what I see. Yeah, it's because, there you go, because I made it. And I've changed my UI throughout the years. I'm always adding new buttons and that kind of stuff. All right, I've added a good amount of thickness to this. Don't want to go too ridiculous with it, but just enough so that I don't have to worry about it when it's 3D printed. There you go. I get a lot of questions asking how I know what's thick enough when 3D printing. I have a lot of tips and tricks for it, but essentially having a 3D printer is essential, that you can sculpt your own stuff, print it, and see what's going on yourself. You'll remember it so much more. Again, I have tips and tricks and stuff, and they're pretty darn good, but they're really just more guidelines. Nothing beats actually doing it yourself. Okay, I kind of just did these pipe folds in like 30 seconds without talking about them. So if you're like, what the heck just happened? That was fast. I went in with my standard brush and I alternated between adding material and taking away material. You can invert the function of your brush by holding down Option on Mac and Alt on Windows. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the back side of this mesh as well and do the same sort of technique, just so it looks nice from both sides. And I'm probably gonna add a little bit of fraying to the end of this because I love having some tertiary details. Going in with alpha 60, I really use this alpha. I would say too much, but I just love it, so we're gonna keep using it. Adding in that texture very carefully. There we go, a little bit of a nice frayed edge there. And to really sell that, we're gonna go back in with a move brush and we're gonna kind of see where these tears are naturally happening. What was placed by the alpha, just kind of give it a nudge. There we are. Got a pretty nice cape here. I'm gonna add a little bit of some smaller, more intense fabric folds up here, increasing my Z intensity. And I'm doing this just so there's kind of like I like having different areas of detail. And right here, I really think should be a bit finer. Having some stretch folds here. There we go. I'm going in with my smooth brush on the edges. There we are. Just kind of breaks up the eye because I was like, you know, I'm thinking that's looking just a little too uniform and boring. All right, just like that, we now have this pretty lovely cape. Nothing too fancy, but boy, it sure gets the job done, I'd say. Lovely. All right, cape is all done and detailed. Let's move on to the next piece. I'm just gonna kind of go in order, and I'd say what's next is this undershirt. Oh, let me check in really here with the chat. Let's see, Shaman's here. Hello, hello, welcome back. Hey, how are we doing today? We're doing great, thanks for asking. Another awesome work in progress, I see. Appreciate the kind words. Yeah, this is gonna be a female elf fighter. And she the requester on Patreon specifically asked for a female elf fighter inspired by Viking design wielding a sword and shield. And that's all he told me. He also mentioned this is going to be, I think it's like the wife of one of his NPCs in his campaign. I think her name is Ruby, if I'm remembering this one correctly. So that's what we're doing today. Barrett says, M3, you were right. Self-accomplishment is huge, right? And Royce continues talking about the right-handed, left-handed offer. Very nice. Thank you, Sleeper. I appreciate that. You're always generous. And yeah, it definitely makes it a little tricky if you're, I'm right-handed, so if you're left-handed, you might want to have your UI flip-flopped, which you can absolutely do. All right, we're gonna go in here and now we're going to detail the shirt. So this undershirt is super low poly and not 3D printable because look, it doesn't even exist in the inside. So let's make it exist. I'm gonna go in with dynamic, smooth step it to 0, adding thickness, but with a -100 offset because I don't want to puff out the shirt. So if the offset isn't -100, it kind of like sits on top of her, and we don't want that. So -100. I'm gonna go ahead and click apply, and then going in with the Z modeler brush to kind of add a nice little trim piece here. There we go. Nice and simple. Just adds a little bit more structure to the shirt. All right. Oop. And then after that, we're gonna go through and add some fabric folds and stuff. Yes, ZBrush, I know that you crashed. I don't know what you're upset about, but it's actually been a couple live streams since you've had a fit, so you were about to. All right, gonna run to our quick saves. And here we are. We did lose a little bit of the detailing I did on the side here, so let me go ahead and quickly do that. I also have gone this entire stream without saving my model, so let's do that. Female Elven fighter. There we go. And the reason why I didn't lose more progress despite not saving is because I have quick saves enabled every 3 minutes. A little excessive, maybe, but hey, look, it just helped me, didn't it? All right, there we go. And we're back to where we were. So I'm not going to crease these edges because I don't want them to be perfectly sharp. And so whenever I know I'm not going to crease them, I actually extrude the poly loop out quite a bit more than I normally would. And you'll see why, because my subdiv, it's going to kind of softly round them. So there we go. All right, let's add some fabric folds. So the trick to fabric folds is really just knowing what type of folds that you're doing. So in this case, I know in this armpit area, it's gonna be kind of a compression fold. So the material is me pressing left and right together, right? It's me smushed. So with that in mind, I'm gonna have standard. I'm getting a phone call from a number I don't know. Go away. Alrighty. And I'm gonna have my Z intensity somewhat high. I always like having lazy radius enabled because it really helps smooth out my strokes. Once I find a stroke that I like, I kind of build off of that. And I'm alternating between building up material and taking material away. If I really like a stroke but want it to be stronger, I'll click number 1 on my keyboard and it repeats the stroke I just did. There we are. Got some fabric folds starting out. Whenever it's stuff across the chest, I always do it out of symmetry. Go left to right. And these are going to be tension folds. So the material is being pulled apart. Means they're going to be pretty straight lines. And they're going to show a direction. There we go. All right. Now for the sleeves here, it's gonna be more of the same compression folds, kind of like bunched up, and we're gonna turn symmetry back on. And then as far as how thick your brush should be, that's based on the material. So if you're dealing with a very silky material, you're gonna want very thin fabric folds. This is just like a medium cotton or something like that. So I'm just going in with a nice thick brush stroke here. There we go. And now the undershirt's looking quite nice. We have quite a bit of little pieces are poking through of her skin. Remember, the body always wins. Do not get in the habit of tucking the body back through the clothes. Just bring the clothes forward to sit on top of the body. There we go. The only time the body does not win is if you're doing like a monster or something and it's really skinny and emaciated anyway, and you're trying to keep this exaggerated silhouette. I'm gonna go ahead and add a seam down her shoulder. This will be a nice little paint catcher. Going in with damp standard and just drawing a straight line, and then number 1 on my keyboard to emphasize that. You'll see her skin's poking through. We're gonna bring the seam together really organically by running over it with the inflate brush lightly. And there we go. Now we have a little nice seam sitting on top. All right, shirt's done. On to this like leather jerkin I have sitting on top. Let me check on the chat really quick. Pat says, you must have the largest hard drive in history to have so many quick saves. Oh, I know, I just obsessively delete them too. So I have a maximum. If I go to my preferences in quick save, I have a maximum of 200, which I know sounds like a lot, ouch, but it's really not too much. So, yes. My MacBook has like a terabyte or something of hard drive, and I don't use like any of it. I'm obsessively deleting my stuff. I'm just checking my phone because it's going off like crazy. This is probably really dorky, and my family has a group chat where we're all in the Wordle, and my grandpa got the Wordle on the first try today, so my family's going insane about it. Very cute. Shaman says, most comic fabric for old Norse Viking is linen and wool. Do you have any reference images? That's very helpful. I do appreciate that. I did a whole Viking collection, and I was a little more authentic when doing that. Ferret says, this is great. Thank you. Oh my goodness, I need to mute my phone. My family's adorable, but goodness, they're really excited about this. All right, I also need to react to this. Good job, Grandpa. If you're not familiar with the Wordle, it's essentially you have 5 guesses or 6 to guess a word, and you guess a 5-letter word. If you get anything correct, it tells you what letter was correct and if it was in the right space, but that's it. Kind of like Wheel of Fortune or something. Anyway, it's fun. All right, I'm really happy with this. And again, it's gonna be a bit of a rougher material here. So I'm gonna do, because it's a rougher material, it's more stiff, so I'm gonna do less fabric folds. I'm not being as detailed about my fabric process now that I've done it a few times, but if you still would like me to talk through and make sure I'm saying what the heck's going on, just let me know. I'm happy to share. But to me, I'm like, it's just more of the same. Alright, this is gonna bunch up just a little bit under that fur belt she has. It's pretty low poly right there because that's where I stretched the mesh. And I'll just make sure I button that up later when I start post-processing. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that, and I want to put a light texture to differentiate it from the rest of the model. So to do that, I'm going to change my damp standard brush to drag rectangle, and I'm going to grab one of these alphas here. I like 56 or 57 for kind of this rougher wool texture, honestly, a little more coarse. I can increase the focal shift. And reduce the Z intensity. And then just being careful with how I'm laying this out, kind of patchworking it together. I can also achieve this by using a noise modifier. Being careful not to touch the trim. There we go. It's just nice to have a different texture. Very nice. Shaman says, okay, this one is more of a noob question, my favorite kind. Does fabric texture have any effect on the printed model later? Like if the digital model is really shiny, does the printer keep it smoother? No, it does not. So texture to a 3D artist, I know it's different. So you're talking about like the material, like the matte cap. I'm talking about texture in sense of like whether it's visually sculpted to be slimy or rough. Like I'm adding these creases and stuff. But very interesting question, but no. Shaman says, question seems right in my head, but looks weird written out. Odd written out. Now I get you. But yeah, to quickly and succinctly answer your question, the answer is no. All right, I'm really happy with how this belt looks already. I'm gonna do a bunch of little thin fabric folds here. I can do that with the damp standard brush, or I can see how rake does. Sometimes I really like the rake brush, sometimes I hate it. Definitely need lazy mouse turned on for this one. There we go. It's kind of a dirty way to add fabric folds, I guess. I'm really just using it to add some material here for paint to catch, but it's fighting me a little bit. So I'll go in with my trusty standard brush. Again, I'm mostly just wanting this for wrinkles, for paint to catch. There we go. It's a little rough and I really like that. Very nice. And now let's go ahead and detail this little fur trim here. We're gonna make it the same color as the coat here, so it's gonna be black. And I can kind of go in here and then run over it with my fur brush. Get some chunks detailed out. Shaman says, gotcha. Cool, I'm glad that made sense. All right, I have some easy pieces here I can kind of block on. This is such a small piece that I'm not worried about it being perfectly blended. This is just a nice fine layer of texture to add for paint to catch. There we go, looking nice. I'm gonna go ahead and add another seam on her shoulder here. I think it just looked good with two. I need to change my damp sander brush back to normal with it, which is alpha 1 and dots. There we go. Looking good. So yeah, as we kind of detail from top down here, you can really see this model start to come together. I think to make this look even nicer, I need to have these little details here that I have that are holding up the coat. Have some sort of like chain in between them. Chain or rope? Let's go ahead and do rope. I don't think chain would fit this model aesthetic as much. Taylor says, texture can mean many different things, right? My goodness. At its source, it is an image. Absolutely correct. So right here, if I go to my texture palette, you'll see we have like rainbow. This is like a picture of a room. And that's usually what it's the context for it, which is so weird because in real life, texture is a touch thing. Anyway, she continues, at its source, it's an image, which can either be used to affect the actual printable sculpt or to affect aspects of the material, which is purely digital. Yeah. It can be used to affect the actual sculpt if it is turned into like an alpha and you can like imprint or stamp the model, but that's a sculptural texture or detail. By itself, texture doesn't affect the 3D printable model at all though. But very, very good insight and good to reiterate that it is an image. Alrighty. Gonna add a little rope detail here. Gonna change the color of it to be more rope colored. What color is rope? Brownish yellow? Yeah. I'm gonna fit this to the mesh a little better by using the move brush. Really carefully adjusting that to make sure there's no weird clipping. Also gonna bring her undershirt down a bit so there's more of a clear divide. There we go, between those details. There we go. I like it. I'm also gonna choose a dark color for that rope. Gonna go over it with my favorite alpha to kind of rough it up a little too. There we go. Just a nice little detail. And while I'm at it, I'm going to merge that down to these little decorations I have, because those will always move together. Also gonna run over to this asset library really quick and grab a fist because she'll be holding 2 weapons, a sword and shield. That way I don't have to manually pose her fingers because it really just takes forever. All right. Now that that's appended, I can go over here and delete this asset library. And we're back. All right, making really good progress. We're about halfway through the detailing process. Now focused on her hips. I'm going to turn mask my polygroups to 100, and that will let me click and drag and very quickly poly paint individual pieces of the mesh. Looks good. The belt doesn't need too much detailing or texturing going on. I can rough it up in some spots. I'm gonna do that with back face mask turned on so I'm not destroying the underside of the mesh. It doesn't visually cause a problem, however, it can cause 3D printing issues because you might be introducing holes and stuff. All right, just going through and kind of adding some roughness to this. Again, she's a fighter, so I don't expect her gear to be in perfect condition. Looks good. Let's go ahead and move on to like this skirt piece. I really like the shape of this mesh here. I think it fits really nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and merge all these pieces down, just this base mesh here. And I'm going to actually export it so I can put it in my asset library after the stream. To do that, I'll go to Tool, Export, Desktop, I have an Organize, and I will later call it pant_skirt panels. And that'll go into my pant asset library, just like that. All right, adding some thickness here by using dynamic. That is way too much thickness. There we go. And now we're gonna go in with the Z modeler brush and add some nice trim pieces here. I'm gonna add these trim pieces by putting an edge loop on the underside, and that's just so I don't have to deal with any clipping or weirdness. So I can extrude once, extrude twice, once, twice. There we go, very nice. Making sure that the bottom layers fit where they should. Very happy with that. All right, I'm gonna go to crease so that way when I subdivide, I don't lose the crisp edges that I just extruded. And then Taylor says, have you ever accidentally missed an error on a sculpt? Like for example, clipping issues or doubled elements? Oh, I'm sure. Nothing I can think of off the top of my head, like doubled elements. I almost exported the magical pangolin from a couple weeks back with 2 tails, but I did catch it. As far as clipping elements, oh, I'm sure that happens all the time. I've just made so many models, and if you really look at this model, I'm certain you can find little areas, like right here, the underside of her arm, that's clipping through her body. But the reality is when it's printed, it's one color, like this. So it's really not too big of an issue. Good question though. I don't mind being transparent and honest. I'm like, oh yeah, I make mistakes all the time. Comes with creating a lot, you know? All right, let's add some texture here. I'm gonna use a different texture here where I kind of invert. So it looks a little tattered, but a little different than the cape. There we go. That's gonna look really, really nice when it's painted up. Add kind of like these scratches on her hips. All right, and then kind of just to soften how weird it is that it was just extruded out like that, I'll go in with Trim Dynamic and I will bevel these edges manually. It's a pretty small detail to clean up, but I just think it keeps the whole model looking a little more organic while still being really nice and 3D printable. If this was a metal piece, I wouldn't mind having these harsh edges, but in this case, it just looks odd. And even though it's on the underside of the model and you generally can't see it, you can see it from some angles. There we go. I like to take care of the little stuff too. All right, let's move right along to detailing her pants. I just put closed holes on these. And this will be really quick and easy because these ones are barely visible. So they will get in a corresponding amount of attention and care. There we go, just kind of threw some fabric folds on there. Bam, looks great. Again, it's so tucked under there that it's not worth painstakingly going through a lot of the folds. I mean, I even did a lot of folds that you're actually not even going to see still. All right, moving right along. Looks like these got a little crushed on one side, so they look kind of funny. So I'm just fixing that up. Looks good. Looking good. All right, we're almost done. We're actually moving on to detailing the top part of her boot. That kind of, I thought it was just like a nice little touch to the silhouette. There we are. And we're gonna throw just a bunch of big compression folds on here. There we go. Pretty quick and dirty, but it really has a nice effect on the final model. Then Taylor says, how much do you consider smoothing out sharp edges? For example, swords and other weapons. It depends how thin the mesh is, but for the most part, I just let them stay pretty sharp. Right now I'm kind of just looking for any major clipping issues. Anything that's going to really take away from the final effect of the model. Looking good, looking really clean. Gonna add a little bit more poly paint to improve the clarity of this model. And I have a couple tricks here. I like using back face mask. It kind of acts as a natural paint and ambient occlusion. And I need to adjust the trim here to be the same black color that I have everywhere else. Same with the buckles. Again, these poly painted areas you're not even gonna see, but it sure makes the stream more fun to watch. I'm very, very happy with this model. And she's not even posed yet. I'm gonna go through and define this arm muscle just a touch. Just adding a couple of confident creases here so that way we have some nice paint catchers. Here we go. Do the same thing to her neck. Going through with a pretty confident crease and then smoothing them out. All right, what do you guys think? Pretty happy with this. almost forgot to make there we go, the fur on her boots black as well. She definitely has that Viking inspired flair that the requester asked for. He's not running a Viking campaign, he just mentioned that's kind of the aesthetic that he wants. And I think I did a good job at making it subtle, but not too on the nose. Very happy with it. Taylor says, what about a rip and a hole in her cape? Ooh, I do like having, yeah, we're gonna do that. And that's also just a nice thing to talk about, and it'd be a really good asymmetry point, so thank you, Taylor. Those creases for the bicep really added a lot, don't they? It just like a little something. Roy's thumbs up. Phil says she's looking great. Non-sleeper, awesome. Thank you guys so much. Oh, I see that we're almost at 20 people here too. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much. I didn't even see that climb up. This is almost the most likes I've ever had on a live stream too. Again, it really helps. I'm amazed. ZBrush loves it. Not ZBrush. YouTube loves attention. Oh my goodness. You interact with YouTube and it's just like, it really makes a difference. I found YouTube so much easier to find an audience and find people like you guys than anywhere else. I've been posting on like Instagram and Twitter and whatever for years, and like nothing really happens. And I've been live streaming on YouTube for not even 2 weeks. And there's just been so many new people, and I have new students for the first time in a while, and it's just been a real treat. It really has, and I'm just very, very humbled and grateful for it. And just to be clear, business has been good. Ricky and I really live under our means. That being said, a little influx of business and cash before the holiday seasons is also really nice, and it's that's been our reality this year, and I'm really glad. Alrighty, we're gonna add that tear to the cape. I can't add it when there's subdivision levels, but I can decide on a pose for this. I like to keep subdivision levels to make it easier to pose the cape. So I might need to pose the cape first and then add the hole afterwards, but I really don't want to forget. So if I get to the end of the stream, I have not put a hole, like a tear in this cape, somebody let me know, because I don't want to forget. And I think it'd be a really nice touch, I do. Pat says, loving it, thank you. And then Taylor says, it is hard to build a community on Instagram, right? I think all social media is kind of tricky, and I'm aware of what I need to do to build a community there. Like if you're just posting your art and dipping, it's no wonder that you're not getting a huge following unless you're like exceptionally talented. And like my work is really good, but like it's not necessarily scroll through a feed and like be shocked kind of good. Or maybe for some people it is. I'm a huge fan of my own work, do not get me wrong, okay? But I don't think it's like jaw-dropping levels of detail, you know? Anyway, in order to build a community on like a platform like Instagram as an artist, you really need to be providing value or entertainment. And just posting my renders and dipping is neither of those things. And I'm aware of that. There was a time where I was sharing a lot more techniques and tips on Instagram, and I definitely saw more growth and stuff. But that took up so much time for so little payoff. So that's kind of what's tricky about it. Social media is definitely a slow burn kind of thing. But with YouTube and live streaming, I feel like it hasn't been a slow burn. Maybe I had different expectations. I don't know. I just feel like my live streams have grown way more than I expected them to in a very short period of time. I mean, if you scroll through most people's streams, like, especially on Twitch, like artists, most of them have like 1 to 2 viewers, maybe 0. So I'm very aware and very appreciative of it. All right, detailing is done. And we are about ready to pose. Ferret says, I gotta run. It's been a real treat getting to meet you on stream, and thank you for letting me sneak into your Discord. Of course, thank you for joining. Again, that's what I'm talking about. Like I met Ferret. I met a couple new people actually, but it's awesome. It's so awesome. And again, to all my lurkers that are hanging out but not saying anything, like I totally see you guys too, and I really appreciate you as well. All right, I'm gonna take a little quick break here, and then we'll get to posing, okay? Let's do a little fun render first. So if you have a question before I take my 2-minute break, go ahead and like drop your question, and I'll get back to it first thing after my break. I really like doing preview AO, which is short for ambient occlusion, That usually gives me a pretty nice render. Let's go ahead and zoom in here. Shift R is what triggers the rendering in ZBrush. Yeah, that's pretty fancy. That's pretty clean. I like that. Another one that I really like to do is, not quick save, render set, is radial overlay. I get mixed results with this one. If they have a hat, it doesn't look good at all. It's thinking about it. There's a lot of polys here. There we go. I like this one even a little bit more. That's pretty nice. All right, I'm gonna take a little break here. And yeah, Sai says, yay for breaks, right? I'm being pretty good about it. And after that, we'll come back and prep for posing, get the pose done, and then she's done. I'm gonna post process and then share this file with y'all. So if you're a 3D artist and wanna like have fun kit bashing, especially if you're not selling it, do whatever you want with this model, just have fun with it. And then if you have a 3D printer, I was sharing 3D printable files. I'm not sharing the pre-supported file, which I normally do, because I haven't printed it yet. If you do want my pre-supported files, they're on Patreon. Links in the description like usual. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. If you've also been here the whole time, I recommend you get a sip of water and maybe have a nice little stretch too. Okay, see you in like 2 minutes. I'm back. Kind of an easy short break, and I saw I had some questions I really wanted to get to. Justin's here. Hello. I believe that you're new. Welcome. And you ask, is ZBrush the program you like best? Yes, it's my absolute favorite. I am 100% a Blender snob. It just did not connect with me at all. Also, I do high poly sculpting, so ZBrush is really just the best and only fit for what I like to do. And then you continue and say, thanks, I've been wanting to get into sculpting, but it's definitely overwhelming. I'll check it out. Yeah, it's a lot. ZBrush is super intimidating. I taught myself and it was kind of a nightmare. It was fun, but like, it was so overwhelming and so confusing because like, you can't even just start sculpting. Like it just is a bunch of squares when you first start. It's ridiculous. If you do need help, I do offer mentorship, and you can ask more about that if you're interested. And then non-sleepers also give me a lot of nice tips and stuff. Very nice. Alrighty, well, let's get continue here. I'm gonna drop another hard save. Alrighty, so let's kind of talk about what we're doing and what's going on really quick, especially for all the people that are kind of new or lurking and whatnot. So hi, my name is Mia. M3DM is short for Mia's 3D Models. I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I specifically make 3D printable models. So this is 3D printed. This is really tall, really pretty and detailed. Stop looking at my face. My camera is like, won't stop focusing on my face. Focus on the model. It doesn't want to. Doesn't matter. You can tell it's very pretty. And then I also print stuff really small because this is largely for tabletop, like this. Also, it's still really detailed and awesome. You can't tell just how awesome and detailed because my camera wants to focus on my face. It's fine. But yeah, these are both 3D printed. I also do monsters and creatures in terrain. It's a unicorn I did a while back. So yeah, this is all gonna be 3D printed. That's the whole point of it. If you're interested in 3D printable files or learning how to sculpt, I have links in the description for both of that. I've been doing this full time since 2019, and I did this full time after graduating from college with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I love engineering, I love science. I'm terrible at math, but this ended up paying the bills, and I thought, what an incredible opportunity, and I have to take it. I am not a risk taker. This was a huge deal for me to try to pursue art full time, and it just has worked out, and I really couldn't feel more grateful for it. I think about it every day. I really do. All right, with introductions kind of out of the way, we're gonna button this up for posing. So I have 8 million points. It's really just way more than I need. So we're gonna chop some of that down, and we're also gonna merge some of these subtools here into the same piece. So subtools are just my distinct pieces here. So like you'll see her hair is lit up, her shirt, the little connector for her cape. They're all separate pieces. When I go to pose, it's going to kind of temporarily merge them all into one subtool, but it's still easier and much nicer if I have fewer subtools going into it. It's also crucial that I have low subdivision levels available, or it's low poly. If it's super high poly, it just makes the program run really chunky when I try to use Transpose Master, which is what I pose in. Roy says, do you stream from the Mac? Yes, I do. I tried a long time ago, but found it sluggish. Really interesting. I use OBS Studio, and that's my only tip, I guess. I don't really have, it kind of just worked for me. I feel like that's just not helpful. Oh, by default, OBS's streaming settings is at 60 FPS, and you don't really need that. I stream at 30, so that might be why. I also noticed that our concurrent viewer count peaked over 20 briefly. That's the highest it's ever been. And same with the likes on the stream, it's also the highest it's ever been. So thank you guys for being here. This is officially my most successful live stream yet. So pretty cool. I'm gonna put more buttons on my stream deck so I can put like confetti on the screen and stuff, but I don't have that set up yet. Again, I was gonna make the stream more fun as I went. I just didn't expect things to pick up as quickly as they did. So I haven't evolved quite yet. And Royce gave me a thumbs up. Good. Glad that was some sort of helpful tip. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and merge all of her hair pieces down together. I'm leaving the eyes separate because they're the only piece that have a different material on them. That's why they're a bit shiny. I want to keep that. Body looks good. I don't really need it to be at 1 million points, so I'm gonna delete the higher subdiv because I just don't need it. Shirt looks good. It's also really high poly. Again, I added a lot of fine textures on here, so some of these are pretty high poly. This fur belt definitely does not need to be 1 million points. We're gonna crush that down to 50,000 points. Especially because I don't need subdivision levels on something that's not going to bend, or if it's an inorganic shape. Like armor, I can crush that down immediately because I don't need a nice gentle bend on it. If you have something that's super low poly, it's easier to pose, but it also might tear more, if that makes sense. And this belt here, it's going to curve very slightly, but from under the breastbone to your belly button, you don't really bend very much. Your bend point is right below and right above it. So I don't need this to be super flexible. All right, I went ahead and merged that down, and we went all the way from 1,000,000 points down to like 50,000. Looking good. We're already under 6 million points. We started out at over 8. Same with these like leather skirt flaps I have. I want them to be distinct pieces, but they're not going to be like flowing in the wind exactly, so they do not need to be 1,000,000 points. We're going to crash that down to 150,000. Looking good. Pants look good. Same with the boots. These are not going to be moving at all, so I'm going to put those super low poly. The cape I'm going to keep high, and then the really pretty fur piece I have back here, this I will also crush down. I remember this being a little higher detail. I wonder what happened. No worry. I can go through this and kind of bulk up these creases and folds manually. I'm gonna do that with my damp standard brush. I'm also gonna brighten up the color just a touch so it's a little easier for me to see. There we go, kind of like this rich brown color. So right now I'm going through and kind of just following these fur shapes here. Again, the initial brush that put the texture on here was something that I had prepaid, but I'm really bulking up these textures now. Again, if you're gonna use pre-made assets that you purchase, that's totally good. But make sure that you can actually sculpt that thing that you purchase. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to get very good blends or do what I'm doing right now. Because I've sculpted so much fur from scratch, I understand the basic forms here, and I can go ahead and kind of improve and manipulate them to whatever I need. Now I'm just going in here with a single brush. I'm just using damp standard. I could even go in with my standard brush and add some more volume to some of these forms if I need to. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't think that the paint would catch these forms very nicely as is, and I really want that to be a nice area to dry brush. I'm gonna start going in here with standard to bring up a couple of these forms. There we go. That looks so much nicer. So a little before and after. We had kind of just a smeary looking blob, I feel like. It didn't come out great. And then bam, just some more areas for paint to catch. Looks like I got a couple questions here. Let me check in with y'all. Sai says, do you keep things generally higher poly for bigger models, or does it not make a difference? It doesn't really make a difference. Yeah. Whether it's high poly or low poly, actually no. If I am creating like a big statue, I'm very careful not to lose too much resolution, but I do that no matter what. That is a good question though. And then non-sleeper is reminding about the hole in the cape. We're not quite there yet. I need to pose the cape first. I appreciate you being sweet and trying to remind me so I don't forget. But yeah, that's still, we got some time to go before that's gonna happen. Right now I'm just improving the fur blob here. All right, there we go. Much nicer. Much more interesting to look at too. All right, now I can crush this down to a lower poly because it's not going to move when it's on her shoulders. All right, bring that down to 50,000. We're getting really close to starting to pose. Another adjustment I want to do on this belt here is to tuck this section actually up there. There we go. That's where it actually belongs. All right, looking good. Our weapons are all ready to go. And I also have a fist that's pre-made because posing fingers takes forever, so I just did it once a bunch of times. So I have a bunch of hands I took and pre-posed off stream over the years. I might as well line them up to her body and replace her hands. If you guys have been in previous streams, you'll know about the tiny hands joke. Essentially what I do is I take I'll put the hand that I want pre-posed, and then I don't want to lose subdivision levels, so I can't delete the mesh underneath. So what I do is I go to a super low poly, I select the hands with the lasso brush, and then I just shrink them. Really small. Tiny hands. And again, the reason why I'm not just deleting this mesh is because I can't without reconstructing subdivision levels, and I never trust that to work. So. All right. Now she has fist instead, and again, that's because she'll have a sword and shield. There we go. Now she has two fists. All right, this is looking very lovely. Very happy with this. All right, I think all of this detail is grounds for another stamp of progress here. And then Taylor says, that technique with the tiny hands would drive me crazy. Are you saying that that is not the just slickest, nicest technique you've ever seen? Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, I agree. But it works. And then Taylor says, there aren't Boolean techniques to remove it. Oh, again, you can. You just lose all your subdivision levels, and I don't want to lose them. And you can just reconstruct your subdivision levels, but why? Taking the time to make sure all my subdivs reconstruct correctly is just not worth my time. I just crush the hands and put new hands on top. And if you guys are like, what the heck are subdivision levels? I can show you. So right now I have 3 subdivision levels, and that means if I hit Shift D, it gets lower and lower poly. So yeah, I'm gonna zoom in on her face. Come on, ZBrush. There we go. So this is the lowest subdiv, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. If you can't really tell what's going on, let me turn off poly paint. That'll probably be the easiest to see. Yeah, so higher, lower. I'm kind of just going back and forth right now. And then this is the wireframe view of it, which doesn't really help actually. Essentially just more or less polys. My lowest one only has 18,000 points and my highest has 300,000 points. So there we go. Carefully putting this on screen here. There we go. And I got plenty of room for the posed finished model. All right, now we're gonna start posing. This is a good time to kind of look up and check in. You can kind of see this like storyboard as the stream has been going. So on the far left here is our starting point. And then we got all these pieces from my asset library all blocked out. We created some new pieces, all the detailing, prepared for posing, which means crushing down any high poly counts that are unnecessary. I went from 8 million down to half of that. I'm just under 4. And now we're gonna pose. All right, let me make sure I have my pose references all ready. I sure do. I'm gonna keep her weapons hidden right now because I kind of find they just get in the way when I pose. And I'll add them in after the fact. All right, so to pose, I got a Z plugin, Transpose Master, T-Pose Mesh. Here we go. So as you see, it automatically puts things in their lowest subdiv. That's why the cape is looking so low poly. So let's get started. I like to have perspective turned off. It keeps everything orthographic. There's no distortion of like the lens. It's totally flat. I want to make sure her feet stay on the same plane because I designed these for, they're 3D printable miniatures, so they need to fit on a base for tabletop games. All right, I like to start posing the legs first. I find it easier to move their weight at their hips first, and then I can go in after the fact and kind of balance her shoulders on top of it. She's going to be walking forward with a sword in one hand and her shield on the other. So much about where you mask and where your pivot point is crucial to posing. Everything I'm doing right here is intentional and took me a long time to learn. I used to hate posing. It was my least favorite part. And now I dare say it's my favorite. I like using the transpose line rather than the 3D gizmo for posing. All right, just being really careful. I think that's all looking pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and bend her foot. For this, actually we'll use the 3D gizmo because it's nice. It's easier to get like a nice hard curve. Maybe posing her foot into sections, just how your foot would actually bend in real life. So I don't do it in one giant section. I'm making sure I'm grabbing each part of her bone and doing it in 3 separate sections. Something that helped me learn how to pose feet was actually studying ballerinas and how they move their feet. You can also just look at anatomy visuals of how the bones are structured in the foot, but for me that didn't translate super well. I didn't super understand it still, so seeing it in motion is what helped make it click for me. All right, that looks good, and I'm gonna go through and actually point her toe just back up a little bit. Looks a little more natural. All right, that's largely pretty flat. We got one leg posed. All right, let's move the other. Using mass lasso. And we're going back to our transpose line. Make sure you're keeping your knees roughly on the same plane. Your femur bone shouldn't be longer just because you're walking. As you practice and pose, you kind of get a sense for all the little areas, and you double check and make sure that everything's on the right plane. My best advice for that is just do it 100 times. Obviously thoughtfully. I can assure you practice does not make perfect. If you're not paying attention to what works and what doesn't work, you can just produce the same quality art for years and years and years without really improving. It makes consistent, I guess. I could say that. I'm adjusting this leg one more time because I think it came out a little too much like she's strutting down a runway, which I love the energy, but I need it a little softer than that. There we go. I'm gonna scoot this whole leg up just a bit, and then I'm gonna check the floor by just grabbing a mask brush really quick. Alright, her feet are pretty much on the same plane. I can always do minor adjustments later. I say as I go ahead and just make the minor adjustments now. Alright, looking good. So we have some motion going. And now we're gonna go ahead and start getting some weight transfer. So to do that, I'm gonna use Mask Lasco, masking just at her hips, always blurring my transitions. Sometimes I don't blur my transitions, but that's few and far in between and for very specific cases. Alright, so now I'm going through and making sure that these pieces are following her body. Her right leg is moving forward, and that's bringing her left hip up. So I'm going to put a little tilt on these pieces to show that. Before I do too much more, I'm going to go ahead and pose her arms because they just look so ridiculous out by her side. Alright, to do that, I'm going to hide her hair and this coat and even this top. I really want to make sure that when I mask her shoulder here, I'm not grabbing anything that I don't want to. And this is just going to be hanging comfortably at her side. I like to rotate the arms so the elbows are as close to their hips as possible because it kind of gives a more relaxed, comfortable look. Nice little tip for you guys is that her elbow should fall roughly at her waistline. I know how she's gonna be holding her sword, so I'm gonna go ahead and rotate her hand so I can just fit the sword in later. An easy way to know the rotation in the hands, when you look at your reference, just kind of follow the thumb and where the thumb is pointing. That's worked really well for me. Because our arms are very complicated, like between the way that we can rotate just our wrists independently and that motion, and then also from our elbow rotation as well. There's a lot going on. time now to pose her other arm, which similar will have kind of just like a relaxed drape by her side. This one will be pulling forward though at her elbow, and I'm going to be placing a shield on her forearm. When I mask, I'm really careful not to distort the bicep or the elbow, so you'll see me double checking my mask to make sure I'm not grabbing either one of those. There we go. Taylor says an elvish rapier would be nice, wouldn't it? I think so. I do have one in my asset library too. I'm not quite sure how I want the shield to fit into the silhouette, so I'm gonna kind of just leave her arm off to the side right now. As of now, she's a little off balance, but that's expected because I've done a lot of movement shifting. All right, moving this cape off to her left or her right. And then non-sleeper asked, use a glove with your stylus. I don't, I'm just bare hand. The Cintiq screen I find is really smooth and just doesn't bother me. I find using those little like artist gloves for pens just makes my hands sweaty. It's not my favorite thing. All right, so now I'm gonna start turning perspective on and off, and you can see what a big difference it makes for this pose especially. So with perspective turned off, you can see her feet are on the same plane, but with the distortion of the camera, you really get a sense of that movement. I'm also gonna find what I consider like the alpha angle here. And even though I sell 3D models, the images on Marketplace are just 2D, right? So I want to make sure that the piece reads very, very well from one angle especially. Obviously, I'm going to go through and make sure all sides look fantastic. But yeah, it's very important that I have a primary shot that I'm working from. This has been such a good stream. If you guys are just lurking and having a good time, just a reminder, you can either remember my schedule. I stream Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern times when I start, or you can just subscribe and then YouTube will tell you about it. Either works great. Roy says, this part posing, fascinating. I'm glad you think so. There's a lot that goes into it. And I've made it look easier over the years, but oof, I used to struggle with this part. Oh my goodness. Once you pose 1,000 models, you get better at it. This part used to take me so long. Oh my goodness. Like I'm able to stream and finish a model now. Even if I sculpt from scratch, I can still finish a model on stream. But even just a year ago, oh, I couldn't sculpt this fast. Oh my goodness. I'd get nothing done. Pat says, as always, great model. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Taylor says, how do you smooth those residual quads at the bottom of the cape? Right here. This is the low subdiv version of it, so I won't be handling this mesh this much. It's just kind of like a representation of it. If you mean like these little spiky points right here, I'm not going to smooth those. But as far as like how I would smooth this, I would just go with the smooth brush. And it would just smooth however I wanted it to. If that just totally did not answer your question, feel free to ask and be like, no, this is the question. I have no problem trying to answer it again. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and try to pose her head because I'm pretty happy with the overall flow of this model. So let's go ahead and balance it with her head. Gosh, her hair is just so over the top. I quite like it. I am going to tone it down a little bit, but it's still going to be pretty dramatic. All right, the model's kind of balanced itself. Taylor said, it did not answer, but I think it's just the fact it's not subdivided. Yes. But there are all kinds of different ways you can smooth out this edge here. I mean, it's pretty cleaned up. If you're talking about like this one like spot right here, especially, it's kind of janky because it's distorted, I'd probably just put it back. But you are correct. It's just a placeholder for information right now. All right, we're gonna do a little 360 spin of this model, kind of see how the pose is looking. Pretty good. All right, as of right now, I really want to do a lot of fine tuning on individual pieces. So we're going to leave Transpose Master. To do that, I go to Z plugin, Transpose Master, and I click T pose sub T. If that sounds like nonsense to you, I honestly agree. I think it should just say begin and end. Whatever. Taylor says, what is the limit of polygons on screen? I'm not sure. I've gone as high as 20 million before, but I generally never need to get above 10 ever. But I don't think ZBrush inherently limits you. I guess it depends on your rig. And then now Non-Sleeper brings up, now the hole in the cape? Yes. All right, so now I'm gonna go through and kind of just make sure that all these pieces make sense and really just some final touches. So right now I'm just really taking some time to make sure that these belts are laying the way they should. Looks like I had a part of the belt kind of tear through the metal section right here, so I'm just going to push it right back. There we go. All right, now for this, I'm just going to auto groups, and I'm going to grab individual panels and split them off into new subtools entirely. And that will allow me to move this around however I like. So every time I'm moving a subtool right now, I'm not so much just looking for clipping issues, I'm really thinking, how can I move this piece to make the entire model stronger? Because now we're kind of like in the end game of the model, and all the little details are really gonna matter. It's either gonna make the model more clear or less clear. You'll see me move things around and just to put them right back. I'm just kind of playing with it in this stage too to see what works the best. This is also a good time to go ahead and add those weapons. It's so lovely and detailed on one side, and the underside of the shield is just so boring in comparison. It really makes me want to just mirror it, but this shield wouldn't look like that on the underside. So We'll see what I decide to do with it. I like the way the silhouette's looking. Let's go ahead and give her her sword. So my reference is for a battle axe, and I'm realizing now that you hold those in totally different places. So I'm gonna need to move her hand around to make this work. So instead, I'm not gonna worry about it fitting in her hand, and instead how I want the silhouette to look. And I can move her hand accordingly. Oh, you know what? That kind of worked out, didn't it? Never mind. I expected that to give me more trouble, and it didn't. What do you know? Happy accident. Yeah, she looks fantastic. I'm very happy with this model. I have the handle really thick, usually because it's going to be freestanding in some way, and so it's just to make it so it's not so fragile in 3D printing. But in this case, it's going to butt up nicely against her forearm. So I might as well give it more of an elegant touch. All right, I'm going to move her hair a bit here. I'm very happy with how dramatic it is, but I want it a little more behind her and not just straight to the side. Or at least that's what I think I want. Let's go ahead and just mess around with it and see what we like best. I'm pretty much always experimenting when I'm modeling here. I'm not working from hard set concept art, so I just kind of mess around with it until I find something I like. Yep, I think that rocks. Got kind of like a hair bump right here that I don't care for, so we're gonna just using my move brush, which is arguably my favorite brush. And just kind of scooting that around. There we go, looks very nice. So I play a lot of video games, right? And if there's ever an option to play as an elf, I always do. They're pretty much some of my absolute favorite. Oh, non-sleeper says time to save. Yes, yes, thanks. I do have my quick saves, but a ton of progress was made, so thank you. I always play as an elf, so it's been a while that I've had someone on Patreon request an elf, and I'm so glad when they do. Sculpting, elves, and druids are my favorite, closely followed by monsters. Horrible, scary, creepier, grosser, the better. I like some variety. I had someone on my Discord recently request a knuckle leaf, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let me go ahead and pull up a reference of that. Gonna get myself in trouble on YouTube. I don't think this is that gory. But yeah, it's like, it's a this. Isn't that horrifying? Isn't that awesome? So I'm gonna be sculpting this in the upcoming months. Again, I have, my request board is a list. So this is actually the live board right here. These are all the different requests I have from people on Patreon. So every name you see on here is someone that donates money to me every single month. And this is why I get to do this. And then they also get to tell me what to sculpt, and I love it. So we have similar interests, and it's just a really good symbiotic thing going on. But yeah, knuckle leaves on here, and I'm really excited to sculpt this. It's gonna be awesome. That being said, I also really enjoy my pretty elves and druids. Like me some variety. I'm just taking a minute to really admire and appreciate the work I've done on this model. All right, let's add some tears. So there's a couple ways to do this. I'm gonna try a quick and dirty way of doing it, and we'll see if that works, and if it doesn't, I'll try something else. I can use Booleans, but I'm hoping I can just use a mask and call it good. Roy's showing me some support in the chat, thank you. All right, I got some tears, supposedly. Let's see if this works. I'm gonna delete those tears and then close holes, and we'll see if it just closes the entire mesh or not. I think it's just gonna close the whole thing. Yeah, I kind of figured that was gonna happen. It did a pretty good job right here though. So the best way to do this is gonna be Booleans as far as adding a hole entirely. I'm curious if you guys think I should do a proper hole or if I should just shred this a bit more, kind of like this. The shredded cape does give a better, more interesting silhouette. And yeah, Pat mentioned Booleans maybe. Yes, Booleans is the way to do this. Unless I'm just gonna shred the cape. I'm just gonna shred the edges, I don't have to do that. Either way, I'm gonna do some Booleans because I haven't done that on stream before. And I know my students watch this. I mean, Pat is here right now. And I think that would help you guys, and it's fun for me too. So let's go ahead and do that, shall we? First things first, I don't need this to be so high res. We're gonna knock this down to 50,000 points. I'm also gonna drop a quick save because Boolean, sometimes ZBrush is like the Boolean master. Other times ZBrush is like, how dare you ask me to Boolean something? And I don't know what day it is for ZBrush, so we're just gonna have quick saves. All right, this is how you do Booleans. You take your mesh, you take another mesh, we'll do a sphere. And you're gonna wanna have them close together in the subtool menu. It just makes things easier to deal with. Let me make sure you guys can see it on the stream. Here we go. So under my head, if you look right below my face, there's this little subtool palette, and we have the cape on top, and then we have the sphere underneath it. Non-sleeper says just one hole and a few tears. That's exactly what I was thinking. So since you said the same thing, I'm gonna take it as that's the correct answer. So we're gonna Boolean just one hole. All right, make sure they're overlapping in some way, and then go ahead and go to render, render Booleans, live Boolean. Now things are happening. It looks the same, but things are happening. If you go to your subtool menu, I know it's so small, guys, I'm sorry, but there's these little icons next to the sphere. And guess what? There are more spheres. Very helpful, I know. All right, and as you click on these, you're gonna get different behaviors. So this one right here is showing an intersection, kind of like a Venn diagram. The one next to it is subtraction, and the one next to it is an addition. So I want a subtraction here. Is that my book?
It's a package.
Is it my thing from Belgrade? Okay, 1 second. So they know what's going on. My husband just came in and we have mail. Sorry, this is the distraction, I know. But this is very exciting. This is the Dragon Age Veilguard art book. I'm very excited about it. I'm almost done with the stream.
Open it.
I'm not going to open it on stream, but it is really cool.
I already cut the tape.
Oh, awesome. I will show you guys at least the box, the book. Oh, it's heavy. Oh my goodness. There we go. But this is it. I'm so excited. These are all the little things it comes with. There's like a lithophane and stuff like that in it. But unsurprisingly, I freaking love art books. This isn't like an instruction manual. It's just all about the art and the concept art for Dragon Age Veilguard, which is like my favorite series of all time. So, really excited to finish the stream to look at this. Okay, back to work. Must do work. I mean, it's work related. It's definitely tax deductible. Anyway, just want to share that with you guys. Oh, Nonslip just says hello. Ricky says hi. Really excited. Okay, back to Booleans. Alright, so now when I move this around, you'll see it's live. So there is a sphere in here. If I have the wire mesh on, you can see it. I can go ahead and stretch it, and it's going to do that live subtraction. It hasn't actually happened yet because I haven't done the Boolean operation. This is just a live preview of what's happening. We're going to look at this model from the front. It's funny, it's kind of glitching with my preview here, isn't it? Booleans always cause some sort of issue. Wonder if I can kind of like scrub and make it come back. Oh, ZBrush, what are you so mad about? I told you that it makes it mad. Alright. Not sure why that's happening. But yeah, we will just continue and get this Boolean done. I can also use it to add divots on the side, which I think would be nice. So let's have everything visible, briefly. And I can see how this is going to affect the main silhouette. And it's cool because it happens on the fly, it's live. Alright, so the whole thing somewhere around here is when it's going to be the most visible. Flipping over to the back side because this is such a thick cape for 3D printing. So I need to have it kind of like a tapered angle here to look its best. There we go. There we go, I'm kind of just inflating the whole thing to get a nicer look. Gonna go over it with my 3D gizmo, drag and stretch to compress this a little bit more so it's a bit more narrow. There we go. All right, now I got a hole. So let's go ahead and make this a real thing. To do that, you just go to Boolean, make Boolean mesh. Just thinking about it. And this doesn't even make it a Boolean mesh here. It's gonna populate in a tool at the top. I would also Boolean everything that was visible. Forgot to mention that. We're gonna delete this really quick. You wanna make sure everything is hidden except for what you're doing the Boolean operation on. There we go. Now we're going. All right, that happened much more quickly, and now we have this lovely mesh. We're gonna go ahead and poly paint it so it's not this weird white hole. Then then we're gonna smooth it out a bit. There we go. That's how you put a hole in a cape. It's a little hard to see in my background, so there we go. There's a hole. And I can go ahead and shape this however I like. We're gonna kind of taper it a bit at the top and then go over it with a pinch brush. And then while I'm at it, we can go ahead and add some larger tears here. To do that, I'm just going to use mask lasso, delete, and close holes. And then I'll run over it with my smooth brush to fix any weird clipping or mesh issues. All right, lovely. We got a pretty nice torn up cape now. All right, got a nice piece here. Gonna go ahead and poly paint the whole thing a dark brown. And I can run back over it with a gradient, just going from the bottom. There we go. And then we'll even lighten up the top a little bit to have a little more dimension. Excellent. Now we go back to our main mesh here. We're going to turn off live Boolean, and then we can delete the pieces that are kind of floating here that we no longer need. We're going to append the actual cape, show everything, and there we go. As far as why ZBrush wants to not show these pieces, there we go. We're all back now. I don't know why that was happening. Again, when Boolean's turned on, it's thinking about stuff it doesn't normally, and it makes ZBrush upset. Zura says, I like to put those subtools to a folder and do the Boolean from the folder menu, so only use the subtools in the folder. That's a very, very clean way to do that. I like it. I just use visibility, but that works too. And it actually uses folders, which is a feature that I was so excited for in ZBrush, and then they released it, and then I never used it. It's got a little set in my ways, I guess. All right, what I'm doing now is I'm making sure that these cape tendrils are touching the base. And this is like my imaginary base that's sitting right here. Not every tendril has to touch the base, but each one that does doesn't need supports, so. Right now I'm really focusing on this being a really interesting, nice silhouette. I really like how this cape turned out, so you know what that means? It's going into my asset library. I'd also like to have it with the fur piece on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this. We're gonna break it down to 50,000 points, and I'm gonna export this so I can use it later. We're gonna call it Cape Shred. Nice. This model looks awesome. Oh, I'm so happy with this. So right now I'm kind of touching things up with the thought of 3D printing. So any little small bits here, I want to make sure they either connect to something or they have enough thickness. Like this little tendril of hair here, there's no reason to have it free floating, so I'm just gonna go ahead and overlap it onto another piece of her hair. Now it doesn't require a support, and it still looks really nice. There we go. I'm looking at the underside of the cape here where the fur is, and then go with move and back face mask and just kind of make sure there's no little thin hooks and stuff. Looking good. This gap between the sword and the shield, well, not sword and shield, sword and the cape is really important because it's kind of like a break in the silhouette. It's where a lot of the readability comes in. I don't like having a sword just out like this. It makes it, you know, harder to print and to deal with. So let's go ahead and help our people out. It's already a pretty thick sword, but what we can do is move back face mask and make it even thicker. By doing that taper, I pretty much doubled the material on it, and it'll just make it a lot sturdier without making it look too chunky from the front. Oop. All right, we're getting ready to post-process, and I'll be sharing this model with you guys for free. This is by far the most successful stream I've ever had. Thanks for being a part of it. I'm really excited to share this model with you guys too. If you're interested in owning the model, in addition to all my other 3D printables, the link to that's in the description, as well as my mentorship program. If you are a brand new artist that's never touched ZBrush and you want to learn how to make models like this, also monsters and Scatter Terrain, I can help with that. If you're already into your ZBrush journey even, I know quite a bit. I've done a lot of contract work and have different specialties and might be able to help you out with that too. Thank you, Royce. Yeah, this has just been awesome. Having a great time. If you guys ever have ideas on how to make the stream better, I'm always open to that as well. I think having this like storyboard approach where I stamp as I go has been a huge improvement. I also want to add more interactivity to the stream. Just like cute little things where I have little breaks for Q&As and different like on-screen animations. Just little details I think would go a long way. I also want to have more interactivity for what you guys can do. I'm going to figure something out with the donation Buy Me a Coffee, because Buy Me a Coffee is neat, because if you donate through that, I get 100% of it. If you guys do a super chat on YouTube, obviously I appreciate donations, they take 30%. I know that's not what you guys want either. So I'm gonna figure something out that's gonna be a win-win for everyone. Alrighty. The model is a bit wide, so I might need to kind of cinch it up to make sure it fits on a base. But I can do that later. As of now, I think it's time to do a splash page. The splash page is just like a highlight of how the model is looking. Little showcase, and this is what ends up being the thumbnail for the live stream once I upload it. All right, looking really good. So to do this, you got two options of screenshotting in ZBrush. You can go to Document Export. I use a Mac, so I just do Command Shift number 4 on my keyboard, and I just click and drag. I had to grab a little bit of both sides of the UI. It just kind of looks more interesting. And then I always do a light edit as well. Let me resize ZBrush really quickly here. There we go. Perfect. It's a tip to all my creators out there too. Don't just upload like plain screenshots of your work. To put a little bit of thought into it, make sure it's an interesting layout. Bump up the exposure and the contrast just a touch, and the sharpness. It just makes it a lot more readable. There we go. How cool. I love that it tells a story. It's just really neat. All right, now that we're at this stage, I'm going to drop another save just so I have something to go back to in case I need to. And now we're going to begin post-processing. This is just making sure that I don't have a huge file size for no reason. And I can also look at any 3D printing potential problems. Like right here, the strand of hair just kind of sticks straight out. I might as well just loop that strand back into itself. So it's kind of like self-supported. It doesn't add anything to the model to have that freestanding. I don't mind having fragile parts of the model, but only if they really add something to the model. Looks good. And this process looks like the same kind of like cycle over and over again. I remesh by union, making sure there's no subdiv levels. Anyway, I remesh by union, auto groups, delete any distortions or problems, and then decimate. And I kind of just do that all the way down, looking for problems. Non-Sleeper says, thank you again for sharing your time and artistry with us, and always being a font of information and answers to our sometimes silly questions. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Thank you guys for being here. I never mentioned this enough, but if you're curious about learning how to do what I'm doing, whether you want to learn from me or yourself or whatever, never tell yourself you don't have any artistic talent. If you want to do it, you can do it. I have a lot of students that are just like, hey, like, is it okay if you teach me? Like, I don't have an artistic bone in my body. And art is something that you learn. Sure, there's like prodigies out there, but like I wasn't one of them. Most people aren't. It's going to be something that you learn. So if you have an interest or a passion for it, just do it. I think being good at things is severely overrated. Some of the happiest people I know are just utterly talentless, and they are just a joy. Arguably, some of my favorite students are, I guess, my worst students, you could say. They work so hard, and they usually end up making the most progress. So much of it just comes down to practice and good attitude. Also, learning how to ask the right questions. That's a huge part of it. Because in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. Shaman says, love to watch you work. Well, I love to share it. Right now I'm going to add a little bit more material to the bottom of these straps. I want to make sure that they intersect completely with the forearms. Very nice. This model is remeshing like a breeze. Non-Sleeper cannot wait to print her. Yeah, this is going to be a really pretty one. You could use this for tabletop, or this would be a great statue as well. And again, I'll be sharing that model for free with y'all. If you're watching in the future, it is not free, but I do share it on Patreon. Or if you're here and you need help with 3D printing and you need the pre-supported file, I also offer that on Patreon. Moving right along here, I imagine this will be completely finished in about 15 minutes. Shaman says, I have to drop. Have a good day, everyone. Be sure to like the video if you haven't yet. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I've never had this much interaction on stream before. I mean, good conversations, but I think we're almost at 30 people that like this video. That is new. I'm not sure if anyone's been subscribing because I haven't seen the notification because I'm always looking at my screen, but if you popped up, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. That's why I created the alerts, because I knew I wouldn't be able to see it. But I want to make sure you get some sort of interaction on the stream. I'm going to be looking into doing more things like that. I have so many projects I'm working on, you know? But I'm making time for all of it. It's happening. I think it's so sweet that, like, I think there's 3 or 4 of you in this stream that like reminding people like interact with my stream and stuff, and just it's really sweet. It feels like a very supportive community. Just you guys being here is enough. I know the man that requested this on Patreon is gonna love this character. It's so special to me that it's going to be used in a game. Just knowing that this is going to be on someone's table on like a Friday night when they're having their campaign, it's just, and like in a way I'm there. You know, it's just like a little piece to me, which is very, very cool. As I mentioned, I'm a bit introverted, so I wouldn't want to actually be there, but I love that my art can be there for me. We're just about done. Just a few more subtools to get through. I'll need to spend a little extra time to make sure she fits nicely onto a base. Other than that, this is going really smooth. And even though the main bulk of sculpting is finished and the model is done, if you have any questions about what I do or how I made the model, don't be shy to ask. If you do want to see it in real time, I stream all the time. So Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and you can see me do this whole process all over again. I've sculpted some pretty unique things in this last month. One of them being last week, I sculpted a peacock mantis shrimp. That's a little odd, but I made it so it was a giant, so I thought it'd be cool to have in a tabletop game, especially if there's any sort of underwater or underdeep. Non-Sleeper says, you do so much for us. These are just the little things we can do for you. Aw, I really appreciate it. Thank you. It really is a mutually beneficial thing. I'm happy to be here and you guys are entertained to watch me work, so it's a huge win-win. All right, let's see how much lower poly I can go here. It looks like there were a few issues with the back of this shield looking a little odd. Might need to clean that up. Yeah, there's a little bit of oddness going with that shield. I'm gonna take that one separate and go ahead and remesh that down because I don't want that causing problems in the long run. All I have to do is just jump back a quick save And then let's see what's going on here. Yeah, so it looks like there's this really thin mesh that extracted. So all I have to do is bulk this up into it and Dynamesh, and then it fixes any of that issue. Pretty easy. There we go. All fixed. Pat says that was awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if anyone watching this stream is thinking they want to learn how to do this, again, I teach and you can do it. You do not have to be an artist going into it. Again, I am pitiful as a 2D artist. I mean, I still am spending a lot of time trying to learn how to draw with a pen and pencil, but this came to me so much more naturally. And if you just stick with it and just be patient with yourself, you can do it too. Kind of like an interesting note here, you guys probably might not have known about me. Prior to 2019, I had never 3D modeled anything in my life. I think my very, very first, like, just sketching around was actually like in December 2018, November. I know it was around finals. And then by the middle of the next year, I had decided to take this full time. Obviously, I don't think that's a very normal story. I'm not saying to quit your day job by any means. My point is, if you put in consistent time, you can do it. And it's not as much time as you would think. Like I didn't sit down and just spend hours and hours every single day. I just committed doing 15 minutes a day. And that's really how I got here. Just about done, and then it's time for lunch for me, and then I can also open my art book that came in. Very excited. It's been a really good day. Thanks for being part of it. Models like this are easiest to print with a resin printer, but if you have FDM, you can totally print these. Just make sure you scale it up a little bit. 28 millimeter is doable on FDM, especially if you have like a fancy printer like a Bamboo Labs or Incredible. Even then, I'd recommend using a 0.2 millimeter nozzle. You'll have the best success that way. So right now I'm really looking at any high areas of detail, like the texture on her shirt here and the belt, to make sure it's not getting too diluted as I reduce the poly count. Looking good. All right, we're gonna keep it just as it is, and now we're gonna move on to my end ZPR, which is pretty much where I put a base on it and then make sure it is proper tabletop scale. So I'm in a new ZPR here. You'll see I have two models already loaded in. And these are kind of like my reference points for how large this model should be. I'm pretty good at eyeballing it, but I want all my figures to be consistent, so this is a good way to maintain that. I'm gonna go ahead and load in my custom base. I have a huge library of custom bases and textures because I've done all sorts of different projects over the years. I've done Vikings, I've done pirates, steampunk, so I got a lot of things I can draw from. I think just some grass tufts would be nice. She already fits on the base pretty well, better than I was expecting. That being said, gonna need to tuck in the cape just a touch. So right now I'm making sure her foot is touching, and I also need to make sure it is completely level, so that way if people want to have their own base, she'll still be able to fit. All right, so to do this, I'm just gonna go in with transpose line, drag a line, and then we're just gonna scoot this in. Being very careful to not change the main silhouette of the model. All right, now I can kind of make sure that these are all gonna touch down. They don't all have to touch down, but it's nice if most of them do, because then I don't have to bother with putting a pre-support on them. A couple is fine. This model came together so nicely. All right, let's go ahead and mask her feet. Everything on the same plane. I'll go in and manually draw a stronger box on the bottom of this foot. And we'll just gently stretch that mesh down and then cut a flat line across it. And that's pretty much that. Now I can see which orientation the base of the base best complements the model. I can kind of cheat and have some like the grass pieces touch the bottom of the cape where it's not pre-supported. It kind of saves me some time later. Like this blade of grass is so close to touching, so I might as well just make a touch. It's like a built-in pre-support. Everyone wins. Taylor asked, use PureRef for organizing references. I used to, and for some reason, all the little hotkeys and stuff for PureRef are absolutely maddening to me. I hate navigating in PureRef. I've used it a bunch of times and I do like it. I still like it. I have clients, I think you even mentioned actually giving that to me. I have no problem working with it. But personally, for my own projects, I find it so much easier just to throw my references into a note on my MacBook. Which is funny because I use a lot of different 3D softwares, and for some reason PureRef just would not click with me. It's like the way they pan, I don't know, it just drives me crazy. All right, here she is, guys. This is all finished. I'm gonna double check the mesh in one more 3D software just to make sure we're all buttoned up, and we'll be good to go. I'm just kind of double checking the sword right here because it's a little off the mesh or the base, just barely. Tempted just to really quick nudge. Let's see if it distorts it too much. If it does at all, I won't do it, but. Now, having that strong line, I don't want to mess with it. Okay, we're gonna keep it as is. I'm really happy with it. Taylor says, I have been using it recently and I agree, it's annoying to use. Okay, cool, I'm glad that you agree because like a lot of people just love it and I use a lot of 3D software and so do you. And it's just the way that they chose to interact with the software. Why? It's like playing a video game and they map like the left bumper for jump. It's like, it's A. A is jump. Sometimes whatever your top button is, it's X or Y depending on what console you're using. Like that's the answer. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, you know? I definitely feel like they tried to reinvent the wheel and I don't like it. Would like my normal wheel, please. Alrighty, we're gonna throw this into Mesh Mixer right now. Come on, ZBrush. Now that we have this beautiful model all finished, I'm gonna kind of throw her over to the side here. And we're gonna verify that this model has no issues. Mesh Mixer is truly archaic. I find it very funny that I still use the software, but it's just like, I don't know. It's doing the due diligence on my part, because even if ZBrush is like, yep, everything looks good, another software doesn't necessarily always agree. So here we go. There's a couple mesh issues in here. These are super minor. These aren't gonna cause any 3D print issues. I'm looking for like holes, like big problems. And you'll know because if you tell Mesh Mixer to fix it, it just deletes a huge piece of the mesh, and that's how I know there's a real problem. All right. Michael Blanchette is here. I believe that you're new. Hi, welcome. Fell in love with modeling. My wife just bought me a nice 3D printer on Saturday, which arrives tomorrow. So darn excited. And this video is making me even more excited. I'm so excited for you. Same with Non-Sleeper. I want to know, FDM or resin? Tell us all about it. I'm actually sharing this model for free at the end of the stream, which is like right now. So if you're not familiar with 3D printing at all, I would say not to try to print this by yourself because you need to create your own supports and you're probably not going to know how to do that yet. But you can always just save this model and try it out. Minis are definitely not the easiest thing to jump right into to print, but totally doable. And if you are looking for a bunch of stuff to 3D print, I'm your girl. I got 850 models on my Patreon. If you have any remote interest in fantasy or grimdark, that's what I do. They're designed for tabletop games like Pathfinder, all that kind of good stuff, Dungeons & Dragons, but you can scale it up to do whatever you want. Like, here, I'll show you really quick. It's a Creality K1 Max. Awesome, very cool. I have a resin printer, I use a Saturn S. I also have Bamboo Labs for FDM. But yeah, these models, this is 3D printed. And then I also have my tabletop scale. This is big. It's pretty amazing. You can see like her hands and like she's holding a sword. It's 3D printers are so freaking cool. They can be frustrating if you have trouble with it. Feel free to jump into a future stream of mine and I'm happy to help you out. All right, I stream all the time. I'm somewhat new to it, but this is my second week doing it full time. I do it Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. But enough about that. I am so excited that, like, welcome to the world of 3D printing. Again, like anything else, it can be frustrating and there's always troubleshooting to do, but for the most part, it's not too bad and it's improved immensely. It's so much more user-friendly than it used to be. I started 3D printing in 2019 and it was not as user-friendly then. My goodness. All right, again, this model is only free on my live streams. If you're watching in the future, you'll need to hop on my Patreon to get access to this. And then Michael says, thank you so much. I subscribed here and joined your Patreon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh my goodness, I really appreciate it. That's a big deal for me, that this is like what allows me to do this full time. So thank you so much. See, I need a button. Like when people tell me they joined my Patreon, I want to like cover the screen in confetti. But I don't have that button yet. So just imagine confetti everywhere. Thank you so much. All right, here's a free download link for this model. Again, I'll be showing the pre-supported version shortly. FDM is definitely trickier to print minis, but it's not out of the question. I actually just released my Mimics campaign and I share the FDM files for all of that. So I'll make sure to send that your way as well. Thank you again, Michael. I so appreciate it. Alrighty. It sounds like you have a pretty good attitude about it, especially because you're familiar with 3D modeling. Learning to 3D print is just like learning to 3D model. You're gonna make a ton of mistakes, and it's just part of the process. So if you're feeling really frustrated, again, you're not alone. We've all gone through it, and we're here to help you out. All right, that wraps up the stream, guys. Again, I have that free download link is in the chat right now. It's only going to be up for about 5 minutes after I end the stream, so if you want it, grab it now. It is not pre-supported. Do not just throw that on your printer and try to print it. It won't work. It will mostly work, she just won't have arms. The arms will not print because they're free-floating. It's kind of a fun thing about like 3D printing is it has to have material to build on. So I kind of have my cursor up on the screen right now. So see how there's nothing under her shield arm? There's nothing under her sword, right? So when it goes to kind of like building bricks, kind of like Jenga or a log cabin, right? There's no material there. So what you do is you place these little supports here so that way it actually has something to build upon. It's pretty cool. Royce has a great end of the stream question. He says, pineapple on pizza. No thank you. My husband's a huge fan of it. I like pineapple, I like pizza. I don't understand them together. As I like to say, I don't like cheesy fruit. Like, fruit is cold. Unless it's in a cobbler, I like my fruit cold. All right, Michael says, I'm a student at Full Sail University. We learned Maya and soon we learn ZBrush. Love doing this stuff. Oh, how cool. Awesome. And then Non-Sleeper says, thank you so much for another wonderful day. You rock. Very cool. Yep, this has been an awesome stream. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. Just such a good time. Well, I'm gonna kind of like linger, hang out for a little bit. You guys have any more questions, just let me know. But this was a really fun stream, and tomorrow I'll be sculpting graveyard ghouls. I'll be doing 2 of them, which mean just different poses. And yeah, I love that you're gonna be learning this at university too. That's very cool, Michael. If you need help learning ZBrush or need something a little bit more niche, I teach that as well. I got 2 Patreons linked below. That's what that's about. But as of now, like, you're at school. Learn at university first. And if you want to specialize, I'm happy to help you mentorship. Roy says, well, it's all good. My favorite is pineapple and pepperoni. That does sound good. Again, my husband, that's his favorite. He also likes like hot Hawaiian pizzas. That's like his absolute favorite. He loves spice. Oliver checks in. Hello. Super fun stream. Thanks again. Yeah, thank you for being here. It's a really good time. Yeah, this was by far my most successful stream that I've had. It's been very lively the whole time. Thanks for chatting and keeping company. Yeah, I'm just kind of blown away by it. I'm really excited to see where this goes after like, a year of doing this consistently. So we'll see. Sleeper says, have a great day. Enjoy your new book. Thank you. I'm really excited to check it out. Oh, I think someone new is here. I think it's Oshikuru. I will call you Kuru. Kuru says, just popped in late. Thank you for the free STL. It looks great. Do you do this often? I sure do. I do it Monday through Friday. So pretty much every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern time is when I start. If you want lots of free not free. It's a pretty smoking deal. I offer my entire library on Patreon, so 850 models for $7. So, pretty hard to beat that. Sleeper says, and he reiterated my screen. Thank you. I haven't been doing this for a long time though, streaming. I've been making models since 2019, and I do print all my own stuff. So if you're interested in pre-supported STLs, I don't share those on stream just because I haven't printed it yet. I'll make my face bigger because I'm just talking with you guys right now. But I have some models that I've been kind of showing on off stream. But yeah, here are some I have just printed here. Every single model that I stream, I also 3D print. I've been printing since 2019 or 18. I started with a Prusa. Obviously since then I've moved to resin, but I recently got a Bamboo Labs printer for FDM and it's pretty mind-blowing. I actually printed an entire set of mimics just on my FDM printer. So yeah, pretty darn cool. I love what I do. I feel very grateful to do it full time. I'm pretty sure YouTube will notify you if you subscribe when I go live, but it's also a really easy schedule to remember. And then Non-Sleeper gave a tip. He said if I place my hand behind the models, it should help focus. I will try that next time. That probably would work. Yeah, I think it's funny because my camera doesn't always like to focus on my face unless I'm trying to show you guys something, and then it's like, bam, crystal clear, there's her face. Whatever. But yeah, I had a really good time with you guys. Thanks for hanging out. I kind of like, I want to like end the stream, but I see more people are still like coming in. And I feel bad to be like, hey, bye. Michael says, I got this feeling my FDM isn't going to allow the tiny details. Yeah, it doesn't. Tiny details is not for FDM. That being said, you can achieve quite a lot still. I'm going to go ahead and put another link in the chat. This Kickstarter is over. It actually ended yesterday. I created all these models. They are all available on Patreon as well. But the reason I'm sharing this right now in the chat is because every picture you see on this Kickstarter was printed with an FDM printer. And they're tabletop scale. So you still can get pretty darn high detail, okay? Bam. So that's all work that I've done as well. Again, FDM isn't really meant for figurines, but if you have a 0.2 millimeter nozzle, you can do quite a bit. Kuru says, very cool, sub from me. Thank you. It should have popped up on screen, done a cute little thing. Hope it did. Thank you. I've been printing for a while now. Recently moved from Ender 3 to Anycubic 6K for resin. Ooh, nice upgrade. Good for you. And then Non-Sleeper is saying you guys should keep liking the video, so I just hang out longer. It's true, you guys are kind of keeping me here in a fun way. And Pat says, thanks for the stream. Yeah, thanks for hanging out, and thank you for just being a supporter. I'm excited to keep teaching you. Michael says, whoa, cool. I'm glad. Hopefully it gives you some like inspiration for the FDM printer. Again, I've been printing for years. So when you try to use your FDM printer for the first time and you make a spaghetti monster, it's totally normal. I have made lots of spaghetti monsters and failed prints. It's all part of it. But my husband and I print all the time. We actually got a new sponsorship from Lego. So I'm going to have a Mars 4 Ultra. The names are ridiculous. I have a new Lego printer coming in, so I'll be making more videos on that and tutorials, all the good stuff. Michael says, I'm hoping to get into larger statues. Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, FDM is the way for that, and you can get crazy detail. I'm looking off camera because I have a model that my husband printed, also that I've made. Okay, I'm going to put a link to my Discord to join if you want to, if you even use Discord. Anyone lurking, feel free to join as well. Because my husband actually printed one of my models statue size. If you go to that Discord and look in the 3D print showcase and scroll up just a little bit. Oh, I'm dumb. I'm live streaming. I can show you guys right now. Join the Discord anyway if you want to. But here you guys go. Haha. Forget that I'm live streaming. I'm goofy. Let me pause ads, make sure they don't pop up. Alright, so if you guys look up right now, let me make this big. This is about 6 inches tall, and it's multicolor. So we painted it in the Bamboo Labs software. This is a normal mini, so that mini that's on screen, this little pale one, is this big for contrast. So you can kind of get an idea of how big we printed this. And that's one of my models too. So yeah. Since you subscribed and joined me on Patreon, Michael, this model right here is called the Barbarian King. So you can print this. Hey, honey. Oh, you're bringing him in. My husband's the best. My husband's always hanging out off stream.
I'm always lurking.
Here it is. Isn't it cool? I'm like yelling because it's so cool. But yeah, here's this one, and then this is the other giant one that we did. This is the Spectral Sword Rising from Flames.
Just Sword Rising from Flames?
Yeah. So you got this one, you got this one. They're both on Patreon. No, it's cool. Yeah, Michael just joined. I think he's in welcome message already.
Yep.
But yeah, these are all models that you've now paid for, so. Cha-ching. Thank you. And Michael said, wow, yeah, totally what I'm going for. Fantastic. Yeah, we're doing a lot more large prints like that. We don't offer those pre-supported, but I've seen people use my resin pre-supports on FDM with great success. So try it out. Maybe it'll work out. I've done a few and it's worked out pretty good. It's so funny, when I start my live streams, I'm pretty much like whispering, hanging out. I'm all like soft and cozy, and by the end, I feel like my voice gets so much deeper. It's the coffee kicking in. Alright, Michael's dipping. Thank you so much. Thanks for supporting. I'll see you in the future. It's a good time for me to wrap up the stream too, honestly. This has been almost 4 hours. Still not bad. I mean, it's not even a full-time job of streaming, so. I'm toying with the idea of doing double streams in the future where I do a morning session like this, where I make a model and I tune in again evening. Because again, most of my streams are 3 hours. So if I do 2 3-hour streams, that's 6 hours. That's not even a full-time job. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'm gonna wrap this up. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. And that's mostly so you get notified. If you just remember my schedule, that works too. All right, I'm gonna sign off and I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Later.